Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. What's up, DB?
What up?
Oh, just getting in from the weekend.
Hey, when you staple pages, do you go, Shane, is that an echo? Is that me? It might be me. I don't know, man. When you staple pages, do you go right corner or left corner?
I'm a left corner guy.
Yeah. Okay.
Go upper left, I kind of, just so I can read it naturally, because you kind of flip pages that way.
Yeah.
Why do you ask?
I just was curious.
How was your weekend?
It was good.
Yeah?
Yeah, pretty efficient.
Great to hear Sharpie back on the call there.
Yeah, it's fantastic. He's like the proverbial shot in the old arm. No, so it was good. Got out of there on time. And from Lincoln, got back from West Lafayette on time.
What time did you get back?
I bet wheels probably touched down and taxi probably 5:35 maybe.
Oh, that's good.
5:30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's even maybe a hair early, wasn't it?
It was early.
Yeah, there you go.
It's probably 20 minutes earlier than I thought.
That's good.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Got home, got to watch those night games?
Yeah, and we did security check at the stadium too, so it went quicker. We didn't have to do it at the airport.
Oh, nice.
But going, we have to do it at the airport.
Well, yeah.
So the first road game of the year is always long because you have to check everybody, and then I think rules allow you to check like 10 or 20%. Then
going forward. Okay. Yeah. Well, and plus you got to work out some of the kinks. Although you said they're pretty much on lockdown, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Pretty buttoned up.
Yeah, it's incredible. Even like we got another email late. So not late, probably 5 Friday that, hey, use the main exits. The players will be in meetings on this wing of the hotel.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a first.
Listen, you got to keep things all buttoned up,
Oh, yeah. And it goes to everybody. So I think they just don't want people don't be loitering where those guys are.
I think that makes sense.
Oh, total. I just had never seen it in email.
In writing before?
Yeah.
I mean,
you ain't got to go, but you got to get up out of here.
Hey, if you're going to say it out loud, you might as well write it down.
Oh, and he doesn't have any problems, clearly, saying those things out loud. But it was good. So I said all week, this is one of those where you didn't want to be right, but knew the team total for the Colts was too high. Is scary. I think somebody sent it to me at like 19.5. I'm like, oh, remember I asked you that seems
high. Yeah.
And
I also didn't know Joe Flacco was going to play, so that would have changed my opinion too.
Defense couldn't get off the field.
Yeah. I mean, and it sounds silly to be like, oh, Joe Flacco would have changed my mind, but that's how I feel about Anthony Richardson, right?
Yeah.
Like if
although he had moved him down in scoring position, but that I didn't. Once he hit the fluky, he had no business throwing the first pass of the game.
No.
And he got away with it. And I'm like, oh, boy.
It's going to be one of those days.
It's going to be one of those days. So, I mean, that was fine. Argued with Micah incessantly during the Alabama-Georgia game. Kept telling me to turn the TV off. Turn it off. Turn it off. Apparently he's a big Bama guy.
Yeah.
But not really. He just was being aggravating. And, whether that comeback. Because this is weird. I don't know why I think Georgia's going to be the better team.
You think so?
I do. Just a gut feel. Well, I mean, that version of Melrose, I saw a mock draft this morning.
Yeah.
Now, granted, it just 3:30, so it could have been anybody's mock, but that had him in the top 12.
Oof. I mean, that's the best we've seen him.
But the mock also has Shador, too.
I don't know if I buy that.
Yeah, it's just hard. But in a weekend where, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't going back and forth. I left it at okay because I could see where it was going. He was, I mean, the Ravi Lullas, the Michael Severes, you guys are really, really good at like starting with a premise and then it gets answered and kind of, flushed out. And then 10 minutes later, something different.
We got to move on.
So I was having this conversation originally about, Coach Rule's verbiage about we're a growing team. Lincoln Lance was like, hey, well, we were a good team. Now we're a growing team. Can you be both?
Yes.
Well, easy. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like I just was like, yes. And then it turned into this other stuff. So I was like, oh, okay. I'm going to let it ride because it was, I mean, you could just tell that's just one of those people that at that point wanted to get some things off his chest. I wasn't here for it. I'm not mad at him for it. But what I do wonder is, like, where do you draw the line? So, like, is Colorado, because we were just talking about Shedeur. So is Colorado good now?
They might be.
Okay.
They certainly look better than most of us gave them credit for.
So it's like.
So is that a good win or not? How does that change how you feel about Nebraska?
My point in saying that is it's pretty fluid. And those two things aren't mutually exclusive.
No.
Right? So, I mean, are the Jets not good now?
I think they're still probably all right.
What about the Niners? They finally got off the schneid. Are they?
If they're healthy, I think they're good. That's been my biggest concern the whole time.
So is Minnesota good? The Gophers.
Oh, the Gophers? I thought you meant the Vikings. I was like, yes.
No, I know.
The Vikings are good.
That's easy.
I think they're a tough team to play. I don't know how good they are.
So is Michigan good?
Better than I thought.
You get the point of this exercise?
I do.
Okay.
Perception and reality are not always the same thing.
Hey, how about USC? Is USC good? Boy, did we break that down perfectly.
Yeah.
15.5. I said, oh, how's Wisconsin going to score 15.5? Got off to a good start, right?
Yep.
So then we were trying to match scores.
Yep.
I'm like, apparently they think Wisconsin's going to score.
A little bit. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, more than we've really seen.
Because the total was in the 50s.
Yeah. It was 50.5.
They scored 59.
And I was trying to reverse it.
Wisconsin got 21. And SC still covered.
Yeah.
So
pretty easily.
Yeah, Vegas is, well, I don't know about that. We need the pick six late.
You're right. The second half looked easy for them. Looked easy for USC.
Apparently they're a second half team.
They were cruising in the second half.
It's kind of what they did against Michigan.
Yeah. Because 21-10 at halftime, I don't know, like I never that didn't look like a game that I thought Wisconsin was going to win, but it gets to halftime at 21-10 and you go,
well, we saw it. When you can't take care of the ball, you really make it hard on yourself.
100%.
And I think it's probably about time, and this is on the heels of Nebraska not being able to kick field goals.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably about the time where we laugh when it's the NFL and we talk about the analytics.
Mm-hmm.
How many weeks in a row are these coaches just going to continually leave points out on the field?
Seems like a lot.
You could convince me. I'm sure the book is the same, although the statistical data may be different from NFL to college about their level of success relative to fourth and shorts or inside the 30 because, place kicking is so much different.
Right.
But how would you like to be Jed Fish this morning or Saturday morning?
I would not feel great to be Jed Fish.
That was incredible.
Yeah.
I'm like, how are you losing this football game?
Yeah, you just look at that. And if I had to guess the final score just by looking at the stats and like everything, I wouldn't have gotten close.
It was incredible.
I probably would have had Washington by more than 2 scores. Just looking at the stats.
And
it's brutal.
Yeah. So
because they didn't even turn the ball over.
With 500 yards total offense.
To like 290.
Yeah.
Or 299, I think, right? Something like that.
It's like
unbelievable.
And I guess somebody asked us during the game, at what point do you just stop attempting field goal? Maybe Washington got there.
Maybe.
But, I mean, they had their fair share of turnover on downs, too.
Yeah.
So it left me, because the only reason I was so locked into that is because I wanted to really watch Rutgers.
Yeah.
I actually thought Washington would win.
So did I, yeah.
And so I left that game thinking, Rutgers is still about who I thought they were.
I think so, too.
I think they're going
to struggle in some areas, especially offensively in terms of.
Well, getting vertical in the passing game is tough. For them.
Yeah. I was going to say explosive plays.
And that secondary's is going to need a little work too.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an area Nebraska can exploit.
But I mean, Nebraska's got some issues of their own. They've got to figure out, because now all of a sudden, if you look at the statistics in the red zone statistics. It's going to be skewed because you don't have enough data points.
Yeah.
Even though they had been getting points in the red zone. I think they were, last week they were 4-4 in the red zone.
But you start missing field goals.
you start
skewing the data.
So
I mean, not skewing it; it's accurate.
I do
it's
think
real data, but
points will be it will be paramount to get points in the red zone this week.
yeah,
Like that's one of my early keys.
because Rutgers is going to make it ugly on you. I mean, they're going to.
When you have an opportunity to score,
You have to.
You have to get points.
Yeah.
If you do that, you'll be just fine.
100%. That's Rutgers' game, right? Is because if you look, the reason I brought up the kind of peripheral statistics of that game is because, like, this came up during the Nebraska game as well, right? Nebraska's obviously it's tied 0-0 at half, and I'm trying to tell people it's a lot closer to going Nebraska's way.
That was a really hard game.
Than the other way.
I was at a loss for words. I didn't know what to make of what I was seeing versus what the output was.
Right. And that was honestly very similar to the Washington Rutgers game. Is the output that you were getting from actual points on the board from Washington did not really match up with what you were seeing in terms of how the game was playing out. That's how I really felt about Nebraska and Purdue on Saturday, especially in the first half. I go, okay, Nebraska's got over 200 yards of offense at the half. They held Purdue under 100 yards of total offense in the half. Nebraska's moving the ball consistently. They're not turning the ball over. And I have to believe more times than not, that's going to lead you to victory.
In the first quarter alone, Nebraska had the ball for 9 minutes.
Yeah, you'll take that every day.
They ran the ball 10 times for 55 yards.
5.5 a carry. You'll take that too.
They threw it 7 times with 4 completions. Problem is they were 0 of 3 on third down.
Yeah, and that plagued them all game, right? 1 of 8 for the game?
Total, yeah.
Which was an aberration for them. They'd been 51% on the season.
Yeah, which was 7. They went into that game 17th in the country in offensive third down conversion to 51%.
I mean, 51% is a great number. Obviously, the 1 for 8, maybe that's closer to maybe that's a little regression to the mean.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking with Dom.
Yeah.
Because he and his wife, they were getting ready to head to Indianapolis while they were waiting for the bus. So we were just talking out there, and maybe that's it.
Yeah. Just a little regression to the mean.
Over time, you'll come back to the mean, but
you'll have a couple of those games, right?
I don't know. I'm trying to figure out which one. So, do we want to score all our points in the first half or in the second half? Because we're kind of mad about both. I guess ideally you'd just like to score a little in each quarter, right?
Yeah, but then people will be like, "Oh, they're not explosive enough."
Yeah, I don't want to be that guy, but it kind of feels like that.
No, it's always going to be something. Like, unless they're just beating people's heads in, it's always going to be something.
It kind of feels like
it was this. I mean, look at Michigan last year. We were never happy with how Michigan looked. And guess what? They won a national title. They're beating teams like 33-10, 31-7. And we're like, they're not really blowing anybody out. What's going on here?
But did we ever, that's kind of the thing though. Did we ever think this was going to be a team that was going to blow people out?
I mean, we probably shouldn't have. Maybe
I don't know anybody that really thought that though.
No, but I think
so I don't know
not
what
going
it is.
in. But once we go up 28-0 on Colorado at halftime, our minds ran crazy. Our imaginations ran wild. Because this is, I know people got mad at me for this. This is why I said we couldn't handle 10-2 this year.
Oh, don't come back to that.
No, because we couldn't even handle 3-0 this year. That's my point. Is after going 3-0, couldn't even handle 2-0 this year. Because after going 2-0 with the way it looked in the first half against Colorado, it wasn't good enough to cover a 30-point spread against UNI. They didn't play very good football there. And then you lose to a top 25 team in overtime.
But they did cover.
Yeah, they did, didn't they? And then you lose to a top 25 team in overtime, a team that's probably going to have a pretty similar record to you when all is said and done.
Hey, how many
in Illinois?
I know you don't want to go cross-eyed, but you watch tennis, so you know how to go back and forth.
Yeah.
You had to be totally engulfed by that Penn State Illinois.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I had the multiple TV setup.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
And at 14-7 in crunch time, I'm thinking, fudge, Illinois might be good.
Yeah, that's what I was like. Maybe Illinois is just good.
Yeah, I still don't know, though.
I don't either. Because their offense is never going to look against really good competition. Their offense is never going to look.
That's the thing.
Is never going to look really good. And then people will be like, oh, they scored 31 on Nebraska and blah, blah, whatever. Right. So Illinois is going to, honestly, if
as much as Nebraska's offense has struggled at times to produce points, they had 24 on Illinois.
And Penn State could barely get to 21.
And it kind of took the last drive.
Yeah. I mean, they were at 7 for most of that game.
Although that was a pretty slick play call.
So maybe Illinois is just good, and maybe
I don't know. It's hard.
Like if you switch out the label of Illinois on that game, like you do a blank resume and you go, hey, it's a top 25 team, 4-0, or both teams are 3-0 going into that game. It goes to overtime, you lose in overtime, right? But you switch out the Illinois. Do people feel differently about it?
You know why I don't like doing those?
Why's that?
Because you have to actually watch the game.
I know. But I think people's perception of that game is different because of who the team is.
So if it was another top 25 team with a good name, you'll take the way that game was played. Is that?
I think most people would.
Probably. Yeah, you could probably convince me of that.
Like, let's say if
it was Iowa.
I mean, Iowa, because people hate Iowa so much, but they understand it a lot more if it's Iowa. Yeah. Or if it's Michigan's a bad example because they're maybe a little bit better. But if
not this year.
Yeah, but if Michigan goes 9-3, 8-4 this year, which I think is still on the table, and they're in the late teens, early 20s, and you go have them at home, lose by a touchdown in overtime. Nobody blinks twice at that. They're like, I wish you could have finished that one out. Maybe there's still some issues here. Maybe they don't like how the overtime played out still, but we're not having this existential crisis. That's an Illinois thing. It's because it was Illinois.
How do you think the fans in Coral Gables felt after Friday?
I feel like they're still undefeated and got to win.
See, I feel like Texas feels like that too.
Yeah. If I'm a Miami fan, I mean, I'm feeling incredibly lucky, one, because I still don't know if that was a touchdown or not. I don't think it was, but
I don't either.
But if you call it a touchdown live, I also don't know how you overturn it.
That's the thing,
right?
But there's clearly.
I don't think it was.
I hate to say this, but there's clearly an officiating problem.
Oh, there is. It's not, it's not a Nebraska issue, right? Mm-hmm. It is there's not enough people who are good at this job to do this job, right? That's just full stop.
Yeah.
And it's really frustrating when you're invested in a team like everybody is in Nebraska, right? Because it feels personal, right? And especially when some of them are as egregious as the Fedoni one. That's as bad as it gets.
So this is probably the first time ever, and I got a text from my buddy. Actually, DJ sent me a message, and because I asked Sharp for whatever the reason, I couldn't, and I think it's because I'm not really watching the ball during the course of a play. So the first time, I saw Banks the whole time.
Okay,
right, because I can see the play developing. I'm like, and this isn't on the PI. This is the block in the back.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'm like, ooh, right. Just if you get vertical, because I'm like one of those guys that will say, hey, if he didn't make that tackle, because I can see it unfold.
Yeah.
Just got a good vantage point. Right. So I watched Banks slow down and put his hands up and just kind of guide the defender.
Yeah.
They threw the flag anyway.
Yep.
And in my head, no, I think I even said it out loud. I was like, don't call that. That's not a good call.
No, it's not.
Right. Because he clearly.
That's a block. This is not.
He clearly went out of his way to not push him in the back.
100%.
Didn't even use his hands.
Yeah.
But they called it anyway.
Is he not allowed to run in a certain direction?
So, I'm like, okay, shake it off. But I can't help but to go back to Illinois scoring twice on plays that I felt like a lot of times those are called rub routes. These receivers are so out in the open, everything they do is going to be magnified. Wait, but is it? So I flushed that for a second.
Okay.
And then we go to the touchdown. And I'm like, wow.
Did not even make contact.
No. And here's the thing. Let's say if hypothetically entertained that it should have been on Banks. Because if you go back and you watch JB's trying to get off. DB puts two hands on him immediately. The reason they don't call that on Banks, I don't think, is because number one, he doesn't slow down. He continues with the route. He's not really in the play. But then I remember a couple of weeks ago we were talking about lines of scrimmage catches, and we were looking at a wide receiver on the other side of the field in the replay. So I'm like, well, I'm not sure what's going on.
Yep. Neither are they.
But here's the thing. The whole time, I never felt like behind the line of scrimmage or not, if it was on Fedoni, it was irrelevant.
Yeah.
Like, that didn't even matter.
Yeah.
And he clearly tried to get out of the way. So I couldn't. So it was really bugging me.
He clearly successfully got out of the way. Like, he did not make contact.
So it was bugging me. And I said to Sharpie, I'm like, man, I can't. This is like leaving a bad deal in my mouth, because not all missed calls or bad calls are created equal. Some literally
take points off the board.
Take points off the board.
Or nearly put points on the board.
So those are the ones that, like, I tend to remember, right? I don't nitpick over a hold here or, a misface. Like, I don't really get into that. And he said, the thing about this DJ, he goes, the thing about BCD is that people forget is it doesn't mean that you aren't right. It just means that it won't change. Keep playing is the best action. We will preserve. So immediately I had to recalibrate.
Yeah.
Right? Because I'm like, you're right.
Yeah.
Like, just shake it. Not going to change anything. And I don't need to be right. I just want them to know that you got to be better.
Yeah. And that's, I think, a fair ask. Because it's been pretty bad.
It was crazy the whole weekend. Because then I watched these other games and I'm like, oh, fudge, they're letting them play.
Yeah.
I mean, go back to Illinois, Nebraska last week.
That's a totally different officiating style.
They let them play, and they weren't good either. But it was physical, though.
Coming up next, we'll set up the show. We'll get to more Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. Coming up on the show today, we've got Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald at 8. Then we talked to Steve Gardner from USA Today. He covers baseball at 8:45. We've got a couple makeup games today, and then
weird day. I don't even understand how you do this with any sort of integrity.
The Mets Braves.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. I have no idea.
I mean, if they split, they're both in, right?
I believe so. Yeah, that's my understanding of it. Well, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Oh no!
Got one of those day 163 doubleheaders right there.
Kind of weird.
It is pretty weird. I don't really know what to make of it, but we'll talk.
It's so weird. They won't even put a line out yet for the second game.
Oh, I wouldn't be anywhere near that if I was Vegas. Come on now. That's got stinky written all over it. You want nothing to do with that.
Boy, I know the Diamondbacks are like, how'd we get here?
Right?
They played pretty good ball, except when it counted.
So through the first part of the second half, they were about as good as anybody, but didn't
it was them in Detroit.
Yeah.
Right? Detroit just held up. Detroit, Shane, I can't believe and I get it. We haven't talked about it yet, and we'll wait till 8:45 or whenever we talk to Steve, but that's the best story in baseball.
Detroit?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the best story in baseball.
Yeah.
You have one legitimate starter.
And pitching?
Yeah. They have one legitimate starter.
Yeah. I don't know how they've done it.
It's incredible.
I don't know how well it's going to go for him in the postseason.
I don't know who wants to play him.
I don't know, but generally, if you historically,
I mean, you play Scoville, you could easily be down 1-0.
Oh, 100%, right? But typically, if you're not real strong in your starting rotation in the playoffs, that's something you can kind of work through in the regular season sometimes. It's hard to get away with in the postseason.
How about a little light hitting Arise, keeping Ohtani from the Triple Crown? Fudge. A little fly swatter. It's all right.
Isn't he the dude that struck out like twice in the last 2 months?
Yeah. a little Sally slap a lot. Went 1 of 3 the other day. Kept him at 314.
Second coming of Juan Pierre.
Yeah, man. Anyway,
you big Juan Pierre guy?
Nope. Well, that guy was about Shane's size. It was just I was captivated that he was in the majors. Like,
so he's cock diesel.
I think that dude was wearing like size 7s. He's still getting his cleats in the kids section.
Listen, you got to do what you got to do.
Talking to Amazing Daniel, he says about Illinois. He says Illinois reminds me of one of those teams in like those Missouri teams in the 80s and 90s, where they'd give you problems. They'd give problems really good teams and probably should have won more than they did, but their record said they weren't very good. This whole "are we good" thing, I just don't know why you need a referendum like that week. There's only a handful of teams that at 28-0, you didn't think Georgia was very good.
Sure didn't. They looked overwhelmed. Like, they looked shell-shocked.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to put it. They looked shell-shocked at 28-0. And I guess what? They kind of figured it out, and they ended up looking pretty good.
I asked about Minnesota. How did you describe them off air?
I think they're really tough. I don't know how good they are.
Yeah.
Like, I think they're a team that if you're not locked in, you're going to have a hard time with them.
And they can't really say much about, a year ago, they benefited from a weird officiating call in the Iowa game with the punt return.
Yeah.
This time they were on the receiving end of a bad special teams call. I was shocked that we had 2 offsides in one game in West Lafayette.
Yeah.
I'm like, how are you offsides on kickoff? And then Nebraska turned around and did it. I don't even know if I'd twice in one game.
That's hard to do. You can go an entire season not see it twice.
And then it's like, oh, wow, Minnesota goes offsides too. Oh, wait, no, they didn't. But I could at least see it I could at least see it on a onside.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to get a head start.
100%. That at least makes sense, right? Is you're trying to go get it.
Yeah.
Let's get to Jaden here. Wants to talk about a little Dylan Raiola. Jaden, what's going on, man?
How's it going, guys?
Jaden, what's up, buddy?
Show.
What's up, buddy?
How do we feel about Raiola? Gosh, I feel like some of these he doesn't just let them go. A few times the underthrown balls were perfect for drawing the PIs, especially against Purdue. It felt like they were just tackling the receivers. But
he draws more than anybody, right? But you want to see more of those just be touchdowns?
Yeah, a few of them, the safety over top, it was probably a good decision to underthrow him. And I'm not questioning Dylan Raiola in the film room or anything, but just some of those that you just want to see him, let it rip, and instead of a 15-yard penalty, maybe it turns into 6.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, and I think that's
Jaden. Appreciate the call.
That's okay to say. Like, I don't know why people are
afraid to criticize him.
Yeah, props to Jaden.
Yeah,
right. Like, it's a thing, right?
100%.
Sometimes you just can't miss, and he does, and it's okay.
Yeah, let's go back to a couple weeks to the Jalen Lloyd throw that ends up being an interception. Jalen Lloyd hasn't beat. If that ball's
ball's underthrown.
If the ball's out ahead of him,
yeah,
it's not a 50-50 ball anymore, right?
Yeah.
Would you still love Jalen Lloyd to come down with it? Absolutely, but the ball's underthrown. Same thing with the Nair 50-50 interception, right? A little bit underthrown. Nair had to kind of get his body into him a little bit to try and get some separation. Would you love Nair to come down with it? Absolutely, but the ball's underthrown a little bit, right? I understand it.
The PI to Nair on the sidelines.
Mm-hmm.
He was.
It was by him. He was by him.
Yeah, but to Jaden's point, and maybe he saw it from his vantage point, there was a safety
over the top
on the hash.
Yeah.
But I still think if you that's a ball that you just throw a little earlier.
Yeah. Throw it earlier so the safety doesn't have time to get over.
Yeah.
But
it's almost it's still what he's talking about though. It's a whole throw, right? Because they're in 2.
Yeah.
And he's going to get over the top of that wide receiver, which in this case is the number 1.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are lots of those.
And
I know I take it back. I don't want to sound all. There's not lots. There's a handful of a game. And I wanted him to just put it on Lindemeyer.
Yeah, 100% in the Illinois game, right? Rather than kind of lead him, just hey, rip it, just make that a dart.
He does have a hose too, but he's got I don't see it a ton.
I think he kind of has to get a feel for it, right? When to let it rip. When to kind of put a little air on it, use a little more touch, because he's got all the throws. We've seen him.
I watched his pregame quite a bit, just stretching and watching him get ready. It's kind of weird, but he does the same thing every week, which a lot of guys do. He's a big kid.
He is.
Like, he's a big, strong kid, and he's going to get bigger and stronger too.
Yeah.
Like he's just a ton of upside for a guy that's already does some really good things.
Yeah.
But I am with Jaden a little bit on that. Right? I'd just like to just put it on him.
And that's the thing. I mean, this is a really good example of you can be good and still grow, right? Dylan Raiola has been really, really good.
My man Lance said he's about to light this fire. I keep telling him I'm here for it. Like you're not there, there's no case you can make. There isn't. You can change the discussion on whether you think Nebraska's good or not, but there's no case you can make. You can be good and grow at the same time.
Whether you believe that's Nebraska or not, you could.
Yeah, that's something.
You could parse that till the cows come home, right?
Yeah.
But you can be good and still be growing. In fact, I would argue most good teams do still grow.
Well,
no matter how good you are. Like nothing's ever a finished product. You're either growing or you're regressing.
Yeah.
Right? Like stagnation in these types of situations is not a real thing.
Kind of like life in general.
Yes. Like you're either growing or you're regressing. There's not. Like,
were you?
There's no end point. You're still going.
Were you surprised at? Why do you think Herald got fired? When you're watching their offense, what did you want to see them do differently?
I just don't think they've got enough good players. Like that was my takeaway.
Do you know the name of one wide receiver that wasn't their tight end?
No.
Yeah.
I don't think they have enough good players. I think the offensive line's all right. I think Maccabee's all right. I don't know how good Hudson Card is. I didn't know how good Hudson Card was last year. I think he's all right.
He threw a couple of dimes.
He did. He's not super consistent, right?
I was like, wow.
No, he does have like that ability. I just don't know how consistent.
I thought he was fairly accurate too.
Yeah. But I think
he was under duress. Holy smoke.
I think there's some inconsistencies there with Hudson Card, but I don't really know who does better with the circumstances they've got. I don't know.
Strange. We'll get back to it.
We'll wrap up the show or wrap up the hour here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's D-Beat. I'm Ravi Lulla. We are live here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, and we have a lot of football to get to still.
Who's happier this morning, me or TK?
Ooh. Is TK blowing us up?
No, I don't know. I'm not in the stream yet, but what do you think's happier?
I don't know. I would say you seem like you're in an okay mood. I would say you.
Do you know what we both are happy about?
What's that?
Take a stab. Who's championing the fan?
Oh, EJ. You guys are big Emmett Johnson guys.
Big Emmett Johnson guys.
So I want to talk about Emmett Johnson.
I bet TK at some point Saturday.
I'm surprised I didn't
think he could do a cartwheel.
I'm surprised.
Do you think he could do a cartwheel?
Not a real one. He might try real hard.
I don't know. I think he's usually calling us going to the gym. He might be able to break one off.
I've looked at some. I mean, we've talked some about his like lifting and stuff. He seems kind of more like the muscle head, where the mobility may not be. The mobility may not be his top priority.
To be intimidating in the courtroom or what?
Yeah, you never know, man. It might work out. But no, you and TK were both on that EJ train
for
a while.
Oh yeah,
hot minute.
This isn't just this year.
So I do want to talk about the running game here, because
would you like to talk about the running game?
Hey, could we maybe talk about the running game?
Yeah,
because people had a lot of consternation about the running game, especially in the
stopping it or running.
No, about actually running the football. Because if you had consternation about stopping the run against Purdue, I don't know what you were watching, because Maccabee didn't get anything.
No, I meant going in.
Oh, going in, people definitely were.
Yeah,
especially guys like Lance.
What did you? No, I think Lance. So I think Lance was cool. I think Lance was better on Nebraska's defense than most were. Unless he was talking out of both sides of his mouth.
I don't know.
To me,
this is LB, right?
Yeah, Lincoln Lance.
Yeah,
but to me, he was like, he even said, "Hey, I'm kind of chill on White." Like, and then he gave some stats.
Yeah,
I don't think he was like.
Well, I don't know, because Friday night he's sending me clips of Rutgers running back being like, "This is why Nebraska's going to be 6-6."
Oh no, he wasn't.
Oh, I'll show you. And I go, "Oh, they're going to be
Lincoln Lance."
Yeah, and I'm going, "Oh, they're going to be 6-6 because Washington can't tackle."
Wait a minute, Lincoln Lance was doing that.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh my god.
And I go, "Oh, they're going to be 6-6 because Washington can't tackle. How does that work out?" And he's like, "This guy goes for 150." I was like, "He went for 200 against Akron and 160 against Howard."
I'm kind of surprised.
I was like, he went for 3 yards.
He must have been trolling.
I mean, he trolls me all the time.
Or
but
drinking.
maybe a little bit of both. But Maccabee was coming into this game averaging 7.7 a carry.
Does Lincoln Lance, Shane, we don't know. Does Lincoln Lance drink?
There's nothing wrong with drinking. I drink the Kool-Aid all the time.
I have no idea. But I'm saying Maccabee
come on, Lance.
Maccabee comes into that game going for 7.7 a carry.
I watched that game thinking, man, I hate the transitive property, but we are about to be okay against Rutgers.
Yeah, that's kind of what I walked away with too.
But anyway, go ahead. You can talk about EJ in the running game if you'd like.
Maccabee went for 3.2. That's like 4.5 yards.
And they bottled up Love too.
Per carry under his season average. I don't know if does that mean they're okay or not? I don't know. But maybe Cadillac Manis scares you more than Hudson Card.
Oh, Cadillac Manis is playing all right.
He's doing all right. I don't know if is he significantly better than Hudson Card?
He ain't Joe Flacco.
He sure isn't.
Knock it off.
Who would you? Okay, put these three in order: Luke Altmaier, Hudson Card, Cadillac Manis.
Altmaier, Cadillac Manis, Card.
Yeah, somewhere in between, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Nebraska will be fine.
Yeah.
Nebraska plays how they played against Purdue. They'll be fine.
But you're worried about Monangai. It sounds like
I'm not.
It sounds like something you could catch.
Lance, no, that's
Meningitis?
that's a fever.
Oh, my bad. Monangai. Yeah,
I think you're thinking of.
Let's hope we don't have a case of the Monangais.
Yeah, hopefully we don't catch a fever. No, but I want to talk about the run game. I don't want to just troll Lance here.
I can't believe he was sitting.
I'll show it to you in the break.
Dang.
If I can find it, my mentions
I might have to think differently of him though.
My mentions were a little wild over the weekend. So
were they?
Yeah, I made a couple comments.
Weird.
I don't think they were snarky. I just thought they were funny.
Okay.
He
said he is worried about Monangai.
Yeah. See. No,
but that doesn't mean he was going out of his way to troll you.
I'll show you that. He did. He sent me a video and tagged me in it.
Let's go.
I don't know what else. And he goes, he literally said, "This is why Nebraska's going to be 6-6, or why he thinks they're going to be 6-6."
Okay.
Anyway, let's talk about the run game, the run offense this time.
Okay.
Not worried about the Menengue fever yet. So, can it be as simple as the way this offensive line run blocks? Because the offensive line didn't change from first half to second half, right?
No.
Same guys.
Yeah.
Same guys they've been the last two games.
Mm-hmm.
We got a third string left tackle who's actually doing all right. We feel okay about it.
We're gonna have to stop attaching that to his name.
Well, I'm just doing it because Rule did.
Okay.
Rule said third string left tackle on the road.
All right.
But he looks like a starter to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, does he look better than Corcoran did this year so far?
Oh, it's comparable.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. I'll take that. But anyway, so you got third string left tackle. You got a second string guard, although Latovsky was like a co-starter almost. But that's not the guy that they planned on having in there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's who you had the whole game. First half, can't run to save your life. I think they had 30 yards rushing in the first half. Second half, EJ starts getting the ball. Can it be as simple? Because this is my theory. Can it be as simple as Dowdell needs holes?
I've already said this.
And EJ needs creases.
I've already said this.
Is it that simple, though?
Yeah, running backs can help out offensive lines. Regardless of who you insert as a name,
yeah,
running backs can help offensive lines quite a bit. And I said the same thing about EJ that I said last year. He needs the least amount to go right up front to be the most effective.
100%.
Yeah, that's a thing.
Like that, it's that simple though.
That
it can be in this situation.
You still got to move guys.
Yes.
Again, but like. Yeah.
But I'm operating under the assumption they were already.
It's what I always used to say about big backs versus small backs. I'm like, just because a guy's a big back, you know who I wouldn't want to use in short yardage?
Who?
Derrick Henry. Do you know who I would like to use in short yardage?
Who?
Alvin Kamara.
Not huge.
I like guys that can find small spaces.
Yeah. And sometimes bigger guys have a hard time doing that.
Yeah.
Getting skinny in the hole, as they call it.
Although that cut that your boy hit last night on the Bills was
D. Henry?
Man, he put the leg in the ground and got busy.
He's too fast to be that big. Did
you see the little subtle cut, though?
Yes. He moves so well for it to do that. It's unreal.
Yeah. And again, all four of those back, they have their strengths.
Yeah, they have different skill sets.
You just have to utilize them based on what you're capable of doing up front.
And I think EJ makes the most sense with what they're capable of doing up front. Because I'm operating under the assumption that they're moving guys some, right?
Yeah.
They may not be moving guys to the point that it works for Dowdell all the time, but I think they're moving guys some. And we saw before.
I need to go back and see how right-handed he was when Mazuka was back playing. Dowdell.
That's a good question.
I don't know, to be honest.
I don't either.
That is something that, but I hated having to go back and watch on Peacock yesterday morning early because they make me watch the commercials.
Yeah, I don't like that. But the other thing that
I'm sure Dan Osborne's a great guy, but man, every 6 seconds.
What's the thing I brought up with Dowdell earlier in the season?
Vision.
Before that,
I don't know
how much better he looked with a lead blocker.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so we can get into that. That's a Dry Race Sports segment. Nebraska got a little creative in the run game.
Let's get to Lincoln Lance. So he's got some Purdue messaging. I don't know what that means. What's up, Lance?
Hey guys, what could be worse today is Florida State fan. I mean, they're 1-4, right? They just got great.
So he is. My God, he is trolling you.
They're not good.
Talk about a growing team, my boy. That's a growing team.
No, that's a regressing team. They keep getting worse every week. Lance.
Oh, Lance, knock it off.
When you said,
be kind.
When you said Nebraska fans couldn't handle 10-2, I was like, man, he's probably talking about Florida State fans too, because they went from undefeated to, it's time to go to the AAC. So, not ACC, AAC. So, I talked about the Purdue game. That's a game that was closer to like a 49-10 game than a 28-10 game.
I actually agree.
Well, I figured. I mean, you told us all week last week how Purdue was a bad football team.
They are a bad football team. Did anything on Saturday change that?
It's hard to come back today and be like, hey, they're better than we thought they'd be.
No, they're a bad football team.
All of our issues. And this is something that I talked about a few weeks ago when I said it's hard to win a lot of games when you are really good at defense, which I think we are. Which I alluded to Damon, which Damon, I don't drink. I'm a non-drinker.
I was going to ask, you don't strike me as the type.
No. I did have a friend, though, that was at the game, and he pounded down about 4 beers in that second half.
I forgot it.
Like, I can't handle it.
I forgot it was a wet campus. It was a mess for some of those Purdue fans.
Those engineering students got to stay loose.
Man.
KU back in the day, they used to pour it on going into that stadium back when Damon played. So, but my thoughts on the game is, like Damon, I'm a big EJ fan. I saved a lot of heat the last year not being a huge Dowdell guy. And this is going back to when we recruited him. I think he just needs some time. My issue coming out of the game is, and I was happy with the outcome of the game, is that I think sometimes we struggle as a fan base when a coach tries to message through the media. I think it's really hard to sometimes know if he's talking to us or to his team, which I think some people have alluded to that sometimes he does that. And I do enjoy Coach Rule, and I actually, I'm not going to beat up on Coach Satterfield because there's some things this team does really well. They have balance in offense. They seemingly always have a good chunk of yards. I think he saw that we're deficient at running the ball to the outside and creating big plays. So they're using Ja'Cory Barney to do that.
Yeah.
And so there are things that they do really well. One of the things that they don't do well is in the red zone. Some of that's special teams. And I mentioned a few weeks ago, you can't win a lot of games being great. I would say they're actually elite on defense and average on offense unless you have exceptional special teams. And right now, that's not something that we have. Right now, we're 128th in net punting, 114th in punt return defense.
Hey, you realize that dropped too, by the way.
Yeah,
they were 117. They were 117 a week ago.
Yep, we are 98th in kick return defense. We're not. He said we're a disciplined team yesterday or Saturday. We're not. We are 106th in penalties. We're 104th in red zone offense. So there are a lot of things that this team just has as inefficiencies that I'm a firm believer in. You put the hay in the barn in the 9 months of the year going into the season. And I think once you're in season, you can tweak things. But to go from we're a good team, which I'm assuming he's trying to build morale maybe in his team or some belief. A good team to now being.
And it might not be physical. He may be talking about mental.
Yeah, after you posted that, Damon, I went and listened to the entire almost 12 minutes 3 times the other day to see what I thought Rule was trying to say. Again, this team is 15th in the country stopping the run. They're top 10 scoring defense. They are a top 20 total defense. I mean, they're good. My issue is when you talk about getting to 8 wins, you're going to face teams that were you and I, but better. So, like, Rutgers is going to come in here, and they are going to try to run the football. We've shown that we're pretty good at that. The only time that we haven't looked great at it was when someone dedicated a game to it, and that was you and I. So we're going to be facing Monangai. We're going to be facing a guy at Iowa who's a really good back. So those games to me are games that I'm worried about. And when I look at this team and you tell me that we're a good team, not you necessarily, but when that's what I've heard, we're a good team. I look at this team now with the deficiencies that we have. Out of the 22 statistical categories, we've improved at about 11 of them, right around 11 or 12 that I follow. It's hard for me to see a path to what I would consider what a quote-unquote good team is, which I think is like 8, 9 wins. You start talking about being a good team. And I think the difference between those, us being a good team at 8 or 9 and us finishing 6 and 6 is that's special teams. So I think they did plenty of things right on Saturday. I still think they have some glaring issues that they knew about as far back as last fall that they needed to correct. My questions exiting this game are, at what point do you take is the risk of not putting in a younger player at punter? What is that? Are they worried about the snapping issue? Or the kick? I mean, I'm guessing there are a lot of guys in the country that can do that, and we don't have to be a bottom 5. Maybe they're worried about the next guy catching the snap. I don't know, but and I think
hey Lance, we blew through the break. Get me on social media. That's a fantastic call, man. I'll tell people you're a lot better than social media. Another good call. That's our man Lincoln Lance. We'll be back with Sam McKewon.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. You can also catch us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're joined now by Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald. Sam, how are you this morning?
I'm really good. How are you guys doing?
Good. Sam, at what point did you go from – well, no, I don't even want to put words in your mouth because I don't think I saw you at halftime, did I? I only came out
you did not.
Okay. So at halftime, what was your level of trepidation?
Not much. I thought that, it was a bad half for sure. But I think I tweeted right after halftime, Nebraska needs to find 10 to 14 points. I think they will. So, obviously Purdue ends up scoring 10, but they wouldn't have scored that garbage time touchdown if Nebraska hadn't already been up by, 25. So, I legitimately thought Nebraska was going to win the game. I thought the defense played quite well. I thought the offense, you have those fluky experiences, but a lot of times you overcome them, and Nebraska eventually did. I thought they played pretty darn good in the second half. They played 16 really good minutes of football when they outscored Purdue 28-0, and that's, in a 16-minute span, that's pretty darn good.
Sam, is there anything besides the third downs in the first half that you point to and say, hey, I would have liked to see Nebraska do this better? Or did it really just come down to, hey, they were 0-5 on converting third downs in the first half? You do that, you're not going to score very many points.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it, for sure. I think you've got to find a way to maybe go from the 30 to the end zone or the 30 to the 5. There are plays that you've got to sometimes dial up, and I thought Nebraska wasn't really efficient on first or second down either. They did have 2 third and shorts that turned into whatever, longer plays because of false starts. But yeah, I think you've got to find a way to be a little bit more efficient on first and second down. Third down obviously remains an issue. It remains an issue on defense too. Getting off the field. They're giving up about 40% on third down, and the team that's coming in here on Saturday, that's probably not going to get it done. You have to be better. Rutgers is a team that can make you pay for letting them extend drives. So Nebraska's going to have to find a way to get Rutgers off the field faster than it did against Purdue, for sure.
Yeah. The weird thing about that, though, Sam, like in its totality, Purdue was over until that first drive in the third quarter when they got 3 in a row. So right. I felt like until we get, because I'm kind of with you on, because I think they went 3 of 5 in the third quarter alone, but only finished with 4 or 5 during the game, 5 for the game, right? So when I look at that, I'm thinking, do we have enough data, or how much? No, they're actually 3 or 4 in the fourth quarter, so that made them
7 of 15.
7 of 15.
What I got them at, yeah.
After going over in the first half. How much data do you think you need relative to how a game goes versus where you want to make like a generalization about a team, right? So, Nebraska's offense was 51% third down conversion rate going into Purdue, but they were only 1 of 8. So you're going to look at those stats this week and say, well, Nebraska is X% on third down conversions.
Right.
Right. How do you know, or how do you feel like we have a good idea on when a team is trending in that direction?
Well, I think for one thing, you get more data as the season goes on because defenses will adjust to what they've already seen on camera or on tape. So you wouldn't have expected, for example, UTEP and Colorado to have the best understanding of what Nebraska is trying to accomplish and what Dylan Raiola is capable of. UTEP would have had no idea. And so the offense that Nebraska trotted out over the first month was completely different than the offense that Nebraska trotted out last year. So you're going to see defenses adjust. You're going to see them face better defenses as they go along. So Rutgers is a little bit better than Purdue, maybe a little bit more than a little bit better. I think Indiana's about there. And then the last defenses you're going to face are pretty good, with the exception of UCLA, although I think UCLA's defense is probably not bad too. So, I think as time goes on and defenses adjust and they say, okay, this is what we see on camera, this is what we see on tape, they get a little bit better at slowing you down. And so you have to have a curveball. So I tend to take a little bit more stock in Big Ten stats because those coaching staffs are paid more money and tend to be more effective at, scheming you up and knowing how to slow you down. And I thought Purdue had some adjustments for Nebraska. Purdue's offense didn't have a ton of adjustments, however, and I think that's why Graham Harrell got fired yesterday, is they obviously just were not doing some of the things that they want to do. They didn't hit any big plays, and Nebraska did hit some big plays against Purdue's defense.
Sam, obviously there's been at least against Purdue, there was a pretty big difference between how Emmett Johnson looked as a running back versus how kind of everybody else has looked as a running back for Nebraska, maybe with the exception of Dowdell against Colorado. What do you make of kind of those drastic differences we've seen between certain guys in that position?
Emmett is the one guy, I think, out of those 4 who can make other people miss and consistently do that. And he can do it because he's elusive and because he's maybe a little smaller. Dante Dowdell's not going to make a ton of guys miss. Nor do they want him to. I think they want him to punish the defense. And so, that's his job. I think Ramir Johnson has never been the most elusive guy. He's more of a straight line guy. And then Emmett Johnson is a little bit more elusive. And I think we're going to see him continue to play more. I think going into this game, he needed to. I told Damon that.
Yeah.
And, and I asked Rule about it a couple different times. Like I've been a little surprised by his being on the bench. And so I think this game will get him a few more opportunities. He has been a good back for Nebraska. I just haven't had a lot of issues with his production on the field. I'm sure there's been some moments in pass blocking. I know that was a concern of theirs, but there's value in what Ramir Johnson does for sure. He's a downhill guy in an elusive runner frame. The best way to put it. Like, he loves contact. He loves running straight downhill. If you've got a hole, he'll hit it, and he can break tackles physically. He just doesn't make a ton of people miss, and that's what Emmett can do, and that's where you get the explosive runs. Is you've got to make the guy at the second level miss. If you go back on the first drive of the game, Dante Dell's got a great hole. They give him a great hole on a run. Oh, and that was the second drive of the game, offensive drive. They give him a really nice hole, and he gets about 5, and Emmett probably would have got about 25, and maybe he'd scored. That's what you got to do when you're a running back, is you got to get the yards that the line gives you, but then you got to get more. And anybody who's watching, for example, the Boise State running back who's incredible, and the Iowa running back who's incredible.
Hey, he is so good.
Yeah, the Boise State guy. Yeah, he really is.
I like Caleb. I like Caleb Johnson too.
Yeah,
I love his style.
Yeah, he's a really good story too, because this is not a guy that came into college the finished product.
Yeah,
right. Like he was a nice player.
That's kind of why I like him. He's been through it a little bit too.
Right. So he's developed to this point. Like, and a lot of times what people want is, well, just give me the running back that's great from the day they walk on campus, and they're a 5-star who, the guy, Bijan Robinson, who I think was probably good from day one. Caleb Johnson has grown into this player, and now he's going to be, well, I think I was going to give Ohio State a real challenge this weekend. I really do. I think Ohio State better be ready, because I think this is the best Iowa team I've seen in a while from an offensive standpoint. And I think Iowa's defense will find ways to slow Ohio State down. So people will get to see Caleb Johnson this weekend, and I think they're going to find that they're pretty impressed.
I hope you're right on that. I can't believe I'm going to cheer for Iowa, but I am. Sam, I get it, right? Because somebody said this to me over the weekend, and I get it. It's just a random Twitter person, but I tweeted out the press conference portion where he talked about growing and focusing on what we are and what we aren't. And the teacher in me, like, I love that. Like the parent in me, I love that. And so I'm going to say this knowing full well, it's like, oh man, you just like the guy. But that's not really why I would love to give some grace, or know how much grace you want to give. How much of the officiating problem can you watch and know that it's part of the game, it's human fallacy, but understand the level of frustration from coaches across the country?
I mean, I at this point, I think it's probably a larger conversation with the league and the coaches. Yeah. I don't think what we're seeing is solely bad execution. Although, again, Iowa and Minnesota are finding a way to avoid a lot of these issues. I think it's because of the offenses they run. But you're going to see, I think you're going to see a deeper and tougher conversation, especially after James Franklin and Brett Bielema really lit up the coaches, or lit up the officials. And, again, the reason I asked Rule the question in the press conference, and I said, that this is not the only Big Ten game where this is happening, and that's true. Did anybody watch the Washington-Rutgers game on Friday night? It's just a mess.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the games are very disjointed. There's tons of flags. I don't know that people know exactly what they think is going to get called. The games, now the NFL's had some games too, and I think you're dealing with less experienced crews. But yeah, there's just stuff going on that's just not the way that it probably ought to be. And some of that has to do with blocking. Some of that has to do with players reporting, other things. The management of the game just needs improvement. And I don't think Matt Rule was the angriest coach of the weekend in the Big Ten.
It wasn't even close, but I still think that sometimes people are like, well, they kind of vibe off his personality. And I'm like, did you see that? Like the guys, when they converted the screen on 2nd and 29, like he got the butt tap from his players. Like, hey man, we got your back. Mm-hmm. Like I look for little things like that to know if the players are vibing with their coach, and they absolutely are.
The holding penalty on Jamal Banks there, the one that he got mad about, I understand why. So the guy's back is to the play, the Purdue defender. And, Banks' arms are up on the pads. He's kind of pushing him upward. The shoulder pads are pushing upward. But the guy's back is literally to the play. There's no way that he's being held from making that play because he's being blocked away from the play. And I can understand why Rhule's frustrated. You can call literally holding on every play, but you try to figure out the spirit of the rule. And for example, the spirit of the rule is the one that got called on Scott against Colorado when Ramirez scored the touchdown. That was holding.
Oh, when he drove him to the ground.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, it was,
no, I know. It was holding. No, I'm with you.
And that was, I mean, people didn't like that call, but that was holding. The one with Banks, I'm not exactly sure what you're calling there because, again, he's blocking the guy, but he's blocking him kind of with his back to the ball and all kinds of stuff. He wasn't preventing him from getting to the ball. And so and then the pass interference call was a bad call. Again, what I tweeted was Fedoni stopped and then he kind of dodged him. And you know what? I just run the whole route. And that may be a teaching point
Sam,
for him.
tell that to Isaac Gifford when he gets picked off against Illinois or like.
That's right.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
So
we see it.
they
I
missed the call against
watched
Illinois.
Dallas
They did.
Goedert in an NFL game go for 70 against the Saints on the same thing. Like, what are we doing? Guys don't have to do. It's not their responsibility to run the routes the way we want them to run. If I'm not impeding your progress by running into you, don't throw the flag.
I agree with you.
And I'm a defensive guy. It pisses me off, but still.
It's possible that they thought that Fedoni actually hit him because of the way that he reacted.
I think it was because Walters was in their ear. If you watch him on the sidelines, he's calling that play out, and they throw the flag almost immediately. It was incredible.
Yeah, that's fair. And the Purdue defender, I thought he stumbled kind of on purpose, but other viewers, because I was watching the game on Peacock on my phone at the game, as well as watching the game live, because the Peacock feed's like a minute behind. And so other viewers were like, no, he just stumbled. I don't know. I thought the Purdue defender did a nice job of seeming like he got set up there. All that said, Isaac Gifford did get picked. He did get picked against Illinois. He was so far away from the play that, again, I don't think it was his responsibility to cover that guy. Maybe it was. I don't know. But he got picked, and that should have been called. Thomas Fedoni didn't pick anybody, and he shouldn't have gotten penalized. I would just run the route. I don't know that you need to stop. But maybe he stopped because he was supposed to sit down in the zone, and if Johnson was adequately covered, then that would have been the route or whatever. It's hard to say what exactly was going on there. But the officiating has been a real issue, and Matt Rhule is right to be frustrated. I think all of the Big Ten coaches are probably really frustrated with what's going on right now because it's not the way they want it to be. It's just not. There's too many flags, too many.
Sam, it's you can kind of talk me off my emotional high if you want. You kind of balance me out sometimes. I'm a huge Bullock guy, right? Big John Bullock guy forever now.
Yeah.
You gonna talk me off of that ledge, or we gonna celebrate together that this guy's pretty good?
He's great.
Yeah, he's good.
he makes 3 or 4 plays a game that are just difference making plays. So he's had a really, really good season. I think he's playing as good as any Nebraska interior linebacker has played in a while. And, Luke Reimer had a really fine 2021 season, very excellent. But I think Bullock's right at that level and maybe past it. And, he's a no-nonsense guy. He doesn't try. He's like Luke that way. These aren't flashy guys, but he plays hard. He hits. He's good in coverage. I think that's one area where Reimer was okay. Henrich could be good. He could be whatever. Bullock's really good in coverage. He's made plays in coverage. He forced the pick 6 for Tommy Hill by taking away Travis Hunter on that play, and Shedeur Sanders had to throw it to the sideline, and then he got a pick 6 of his own. So. Yeah, he's the best player on the defense. Isaac Gifford's, great too. I think Bullock's had the best season though so far of any of the Husker defenders. And hey, I thought Nebraska's defensive line played a lot better too. I did too. Illinois was not their favorite game, but I thought Nebraska's defensive line played its tail off and played really hard. Now they're going to play a team that does not care. They're going to keep running the ball. They don't care. And so Rutgers is going to run at you, and they're tough. And Nebraska's defensive line is going to have to pack a lunch because it's going to be hot, and they're going to have to play a team that knows who they are. And Rutgers, I don't even think has much of an ego. I don't think, if they lose the game, their fan base isn't going to be devastated. So, they just kind of go out and do what they do, and they're comfortable with who they are. And if they win, they win. And if they don't, they're frustrated, but I don't think it's like the end of the world. So Rutgers is going to go be Rutgers, and Nebraska is going to have to match the physicality and match the edge that Rutgers likes to play with.
Saturday won't be hot. It's only going to be like 82, 83. It'll be fine.
Well, it'll be 85, and it's the hottest part of the day. It's going to be hot.
Oh, poop.
It's gonna be a long afternoon.
Maybe the forecast will change.
No, but that's how Nebraska. I don't know.
I think Nebraska can run the ball on Rutgers, but they're gonna have to They're gonna have to stop Rutgers' run game.
Rutgers is gonna have to prove that they can get vertical in the passing game. If Nebraska doesn't have to play it honest, I don't know, man. I think this is a good matchup for Nebraska, and I'm not even on the Homer network yet. This is just like regular radio. I think it's a good matchup. Weeks, is Indiana a bad matchup? So I don't know yet. I have to really watch Indiana up front because stuff comes out quick and it's a little tempo, and I have to watch Indiana a little more. I'm kind of like Nebraska in this, just one game at a time for me. Although I did watch Rutgers twice, once live, and then yesterday or last night. Their inability, there's two things that bug me about them if I'm a Rutgers fan. They can't get vertical in the passing game, and they're not very good defending the pass. I'm not sure that's a great recipe for Saturday. Right? We can talk about Monangai, and he's legit, right? You're going to see counter and power and some blast, and it's not fancy. But I don't know, man. If you want to play that one in a phone booth, contrary to popular belief from the UNI rhetoric, Nebraska was way better against you. UNI is still averaging 202 yards a game in FCS. They came into the Nebraska game averaging over 300. Nebraska held them to 136, and we lost our mind. Two backs from Purdue, three if you count Lafferly. They averaged 4 yards a carry, and we act like we couldn't stop Navy's rushing offense. Does it need to get better? Yeah, but the hitting the panic, I'm like, really, guys? Look at their defense statistically. They're pretty good.
Yeah, I thought they played very well defensively against Purdue.
And Maccabee, this is a team that was tops in the league in rushing last year and fifth coming into this one. We were terrified, some of us.
Yeah. I thought Nebraska their defense played, in some ways its best game of the year, although statistically that's Colorado. Colorado can score on pretty much anybody.
Well, apparently Colorado's good again. They weren't after we beat them. Remember that narrative?
Always thought Colorado was going to be good this year. I think they're pretty good.
Remember that?
I do. Well, I remember people saying it. I do not. I didn't feel that way.
No, I know, because we talked about it.
Yeah, the Colorado team that I saw on the field against Nebraska was way better than the one last year.
100%.
Especially on defense.
100%.
So, I don't know. I don't know if Colorado's going to win 7 games or 8 games or 9 games, but the idea that the Big 12 is, and this has been sort of shared on, what a league. No, it's now a one-bid league. It is, after this weekend, it is a one-bid league. There will not be 2 bids.
Is Michigan good?
They're going to lose this weekend.
Is USC good?
Yes, I think so.
Is Iowa good?
Yes.
Is Ohio State good?
They might beat Iowa, so that would mean they're pretty good. I don't know. You measure Ohio State by the standards by which we measure Ohio State. I don't know yet. The best Ohio State team was the 2014 team. The second best was the 2019 team. Actually, the 2019 team was better than the 2014 team. But, yeah, they're good. But I don't know if they're that good.
Man,
is Oregon good?
To tell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I know those uniforms were sweet. Full disclosure. They were incredible.
Oregon's got some issues on offense. They're not great on offense. They're good, but they're not great. On defense, they're really good. They really fly around.
I should have saved all my pushback that I got when I wasn't fawning over Dylan Gabriel. Like, statistically, he's good. You just have to watch him. Something is amiss. And part of it is, for them, is their offensive line. They got to start to play to their strengths a little bit better.
They will. They'll get it figured out. Lanning will get them figured out.
Sam, appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
That's Sam McKewon from the Omaha World Herald. Don't forget, get out to Union Omaha on Wednesday. That's a noon game. Going to be nice outside at Warner Park. It is Students and Educators Day presented by Family Fair and Supermercado. Get to unionomaha.com to get your tickets. We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts. We may or may not have had a call that basically went through the entire break a couple segments ago.
Which was a good
call.
I get it. I don't know how you guys, I don't know how I missed this. Okay. So I don't know how I missed the whole conversation between you and Lance. Because he did tag me in it.
Mm-hmm.
I was apparently doing something. I don't know.
I think you were that was Friday night. So you were like getting settled in Purdue.
Yeah. And listen, does he make me mad sometimes? Yeah. But I still think he's a good dude, right? Like,
yeah, and I don't know him personally.
And I think he does. Guess who loves him?
Who?
Degenerate Aaron.
That makes sense.
It's ridiculous.
Actually, I like Aaron too, though.
I don't know Degenerate Aaron either.
You just know Degenerate Aaron gets mad at Ravi.
I'm okay with on the phone, Lance.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
I can leave internet Lance alone.
Yeah, I'm like,
those are two different people in my mind.
And somehow, like, he even got Tyson's dad involved on the social media chain. I'm like, don't encourage him. The original question was, well, it got so deep too, and then we got into analytics and stats, and I'm like, guys, he's pulling a Ravi Severe. He's moved the goalpost for the discussion. Like,
redefining the parameters.
His original question was, can you be good and grow at the same time? What I think he really wanted to say was, like, if I was him, this is what I would have said. He said we were good a couple of weeks. They were a good team. I don't think we're very good.
Yeah.
Because I think that's what
he's arguing.
I think that's what he's arguing.
He's arguing they're not good.
He's not arguing whether you can be good and grow at the same time.
But
I think he's wanting to redefine what good means.
He's doing the thing that bothers me quite a bit, where he feels like Nebraska's not good, which is fine. That's a valid opinion if that's what you're seeing. I disagree, but okay. But then he's trying to use either analytics or somebody else's words or whatever to try and prove his feelings.
How do you spell averaged?
Averaged.
Oh, I got it. Didn't give me the red squiggle.
Good.
Never mind.
You know what I mean?
Well, sometimes I can't see.
So, like, if you feel a certain way and that's your feeling about a situation, that's fine. Everybody's entitled to their feelings and opinions and whatever. Some of them are good, some are bad, whatever. But then don't try and prove your feelings with other stuff. You can tell me why you feel a certain way.
I missed that whole conversation.
Yeah,
So what was the thing that you went on where you said people were losing their minds?
Oh.
And I keep telling you, people can make you dumber.
They
so
certainly
be careful.
can. I know, you're right. And so, honestly, one of the things they were losing their minds about, because I felt firmly, I was talking to some people at halftime of the game.
Okay.
And I felt firmly that Nebraska.
Is this like Insta reaction?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Really?
Yeah, it was like a live thing that I was having a discussion with people. And
can you imagine the lack of self-control that could have happened at like real time?
Oh, yeah.
It's got to be a circus.
Well, so
even after the game, it's a circus, let alone while you're in it.
Oh, people were melting down at halftime.
I could see it, though.
They were on full.
I could see
and
it.
I was like, guys, Nebraska's kind of kicking Purdue's ass right now.
That much is true. I was at a loss for words how to explain it. I asked Sharpie. I asked Benny Mack, which, by the way, Shane, get Benny Mack this week.
And so here's what happened. In my opinion, this is what happened. And people kind of tried to explain this to me, but not everybody can explain their feelings well, and that's okay. But
wow.
Well, it's true. Some people have a hard time verbalizing what they're feeling.
Yeah.
And so that's what I try and help with. That's kind of what we do here. And so I think a lot of people were feeling, hey, we've seen Nebraska play this game a lot in the last decade, and it hasn't gone our way.
Yeah.
Like when Nebraska.
So this was at halftime.
Yes, this is at halftime.
Okay.
And so I think that's why people were panicking, because they're like, oh God, not again. Right? They had over the last 10 years or so, especially.
Iowa State and Lincoln, 8 turnovers.
Yeah.
Although we hadn't turned, but I get it, right?
Right, but like just
the total egg laying.
100%. Okay. Or I mean, just pick one. There's a million. Or I mean, Northwestern, Illinois, like just pick one, right?
Were you surprised? Can I say this real quick
Yeah, go
before
ahead.
you do?
Yeah.
Were you surprised that at all that Nebraska hadn't scored any points and hadn't turned the ball over?
100%. The way the game was going, it was shocking Nebraska did not have a 2-score lead.
Okay.
I thought. That's why I was like, guys, I know it's 0-0. Nebraska's kicking Purdue's ass right now.
They were on pace for like 420 at the half, 2 yards.
And what did they end up with? 419.
Did they?
On the button.
Yeah, because I think they had like 210 at the half.
Yeah, they did. It was 210 to 90 at the half. It ends up basically those numbers held up basically. And I was like, that doesn't even include the penalty yardage that Dylan Raiola and the receivers have forced, right? We're not even including that. If you want to include like half of that, Nebraska's well over 500 yards of total offense, right? So whatever. I know penalties don't count as total offense. But I'm like, guys, Nebraska's actually playing really well. The only difference is they've got an outlier on third downs right now, but this is a 50% conversion team on the season.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, so, and 2 of those are against Power 5 opponents. So is Nebraska all of a sudden, this is who they are on third down forever? I don't think so. This feels like an aberration. And so people were losing their minds. They're like, well, what about the running game? They can't run at all. This is the worst run defense in the Big Ten or the country or whatever.
See,
and go on and on and on.
Okay.
And so this is where people were losing their minds. And then they were not willing to hear it when I was like, hey, I think you're going to have to accept the fact that Nebraska may have to stretch the field horizontally some in order to have more traditional run game.
Similar to what Illinois did to Nebraska, right?
And we lost our minds about because they were gashing us on.
And people would sit up there and tell this bald-faced lie that you and I gave Nebraska or gave opponents the blueprint. No, they didn't. Stop saying that. You either don't know football or you're lying. And I hate to be like this, but we're partly responsible for feeding the BS narrative.
Mm-hmm.
You and I gave no blueprint. They ran the ball completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Scheme is different. And listen, if you're just going to say, hey, Nebraska could be vulnerable on the ground and leave it at that, that's fine.
Sure.
That's fine. But don't do the whole blueprint thing because that's a lie.
Yeah.
Just like Purdue not being good at rush defense. You know where they weren't good? Like if you did a spray chart of Purdue's rushing defense, do you know where they're not good? They're not good on the perimeters.
Yeah.
So C gap on out. They also miss an inordinate amount of tackles in the secondary.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that they just can't line up and not stop the run. And we had 2 quarterbacks that went over 100 yards rushing the ball against Purdue.
And they were bad at quarterback run defense.
It was all
which
different.
Nebraska was never going to do.
It's not the same.
And yeah, so when you just line it up with Dowdell,
maybe we need to do better or some, I don't know, but like we regurgitate a lot of BS.
Yeah,
it's aggravating.
So that's what. So at halftime, I'm live doing this, and I'm going, hey, I think, and I know Nebraska fans have been conditioned their entire lives to think the opposite of this, that the inside run and pounding the rock opens everything else up. You may have to be okay with the fact that stretching the field horizontally can then open up inside run. Yeah. Is that a real thing? Am I crazy?
No.
Like if you stretch the team out, like
Lord knows I'd love to tell you if you were, but you're not.
I know, right? I used Oregon as an example. Old school Oregon. What did they do? They spread people out horizontally and then they gashed them vertically, right? That was the entire blueprint of that offense in the later stages of Chip Kelly, Mark.
Kind of like when I said during the broadcast, I don't know why Purdue would get in any condensed set.
No,
they can't block Nebraska in condensed sets.
No, they cannot.
Spread them out.
Yes.
And pick a lane.
100%. And so that's why I'm like, okay, that's why the stuff to Barney is important. That's why the jet sweeps are important, which we're working the whole game, by the way. That wasn't a second half aberration. Working the whole game. That's why the pop passes are important. I was like, and that's why the short passing game is important. You have to, at some point, if you're a Nebraska fan and you think Dylan Raiola is the best player on the offense, which he probably is, you have to be okay with the fact that, hey, maybe we're going to put the ball in his hands a little bit to distribute out to the perimeter.
So it's a self-control. Like if you're Nebraska's offensive coordinator and you're this, like you have to have self-control.
Yeah.
Because when you're running the football, you're basically telling yourself, okay, my best decision maker is
not going to have the ball today.
Is not making decisions.
Yeah. And
you got to be okay with that. And believe me, it's not easy. No. And I'm not telling you like, oh, just do it. Because what do I always say about coaching? I want to be the guy where if I'm not playing, I make my coach feel uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I tell our players. Hey, listen, if you're not in the game, it should make me feel some type of way like, man, I got to get such and such in the game.
It's the same thing with play calling, though, too, right?
100%.
Like
that's the analogy.
Dylan has to make Satterfield uncomfortable every time he takes the ball out of his hands.
That's the analogy.
And guess what? I'm uncomfortable every time he takes the ball out of his hands, except for when EJ's gashing people in the second half, right? But Can I make the same argument? People are like, oh, Dowdell's the hammer that softened up. Can I make the argument that Barney's the guy that softened it up too?
Yeah, but you do. So Nebraska is going to have to figure out how to
Use them both.
Use them all their backs, because I do like the body to headshot kind of style. I don't think you get EJ's life without Dowdell in it.
I also don't think you get EJ's life without spreading them out horizontally.
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
Barney.
No, that's true.
Barney makes life difficult.
That's 100%
for people.
That's 100% true.
We're going to talk a little baseball coming up next with Steve Gardner from USA Today here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're joined now by Steve Gardner of USA Today to talk a little baseball. Steve, how are you this morning?
I'm great, Ravi. How are you?
Oh, good. We are hanging in here. Listen, I'm a diehard baseball guy. People always associate me with football, but baseball is probably my favorite sport here, Steve. And even I'm trying to figure out why the Mets and the Braves agreed to do this today. Like, how is this going to work from an integrity standpoint?
Well, I mean, the why, I guess, is because the Braves didn't want to give up their home dates and the crowd and all that sort of stuff. So that we'll get that out of the way fast. But in terms of how it's going to break down and the integrity and everything, I think it hurts both teams no matter what happens today. Obviously, if somebody sweeps and the losing team is out of the playoffs altogether, but to play today and then have to travel to go to the wild card series tomorrow, it's a huge disadvantage. And those teams, that finished up their regular seasons yesterday are kind of laughing at the Braves and Mets right now because they get a chance to sit back and rest. And I think that's going to be an advantage in the next series. But right now, we have to figure out who's getting in the playoffs in those final 2 wild card spots.
Steve, okay, so I want to make sure I understand this correctly. If the teams split today, if the Braves and Mets split today, they both get in. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
So what that's going to lead to then
a gentleman's agreement.
Exactly. I mean, it makes too much sense.
It's a little tough there. Yeah, it's a little tough.
Yeah, the Diamondbacks cannot be feeling very good this morning. But yeah, for everybody who hasn't really looked into it that much, there is no incentive for the team that wins Game 1 to do anything but put their bench warmers out there and play not 100%, because the only thing you can lose is a player to injury.
Well, and pitching staff depth, right? I mean, like you said, they've got a short turnaround. So why on earth, if you win the first game, would you throw anyone you care about in Game 2?
No, it will be bullpen game for Atlanta or bullpen game for the Mets if they win Game 1. And they want, Atlanta would love to hold back. That's the thing. The team that loses, then how much do you go all out? Because the other team is going to try a lot less. So if Atlanta loses, do they throw Chris Sale in Game 2, or do they go bullpen as well? Do the Mets throw Luis Severino in Game 2, or do they go bullpen? Even if either one wins, I think that's a real question, because you want to have, your best remaining pitcher start Game 1 of the division series.
That is so.
So I'm here. We might see some pretty bad baseball today.
So Steve, let me ask you this.
You'll see some good baseball in Game 1.
In Game 1, it'll be balls to the wall, right? But listen,
you'll see some real good baseball.
So Steve, I get it with the one extra team in the playoffs, but would part of you like to go back to Game 163 and its format from a year ago?
I thought that was a fun format, and I think yes is the answer, and that's because you want to have those tiebreaker type things where 2 teams go through 162 games of the regular season and end up tied. You want to see it settled on the field, and you don't want to have a tiebreaker formula. Just imagine if 3 teams, the Mets and the Braves and Cincinnati or whomever, ended up tying, and you had to go through a tiebreaker, mathematical formula based on division record and all this sort of stuff, and 2 teams get into the playoffs and 1 is left out. I would love to see it determined on the field. I think the drama, going back to the Bucky Dent game, all of those those great.
We don't got to do that.
Memories.
We don't got to do that here.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot. Ravi's a diehard Red Sox guy, but
sorry about that.
Catching strays out here, man. Like, I'm sitting here looking at me like, hey, how do the Red Sox have the same home record as the A's? And I'm just out here catching Bucky Dent strays.
Steve, along those lines, go ahead. So along those lines,
just say settle it on the field.
Yeah.
That's all.
I'm the diehard Dodgers fan, but I got to throw our producer a bone because he is a Tigers fan, and I told him it is clearly the best story in baseball that doesn't have Ohtani in the sentence. Or I guess Judge is going to make his case too, so I apologize.
He didn't even get to 60.
So you got to tell me though, Steve. You have to walk me through Reese Olson, Montero, Casey Mize. I mean, occasionally Brant Hunter. Like Detroit has one legit. They got Skubal, and they're in the postseason, and they're riding a high. How?
Yeah. I have been trying to figure that out basically since the All-Star, or at least since the trade deadline. When you trade away Jack Flaherty, and a couple of bullpen guys.
Weren't they? It wasn't tanking, but they clearly didn't seem like they. It reminds me of Major League.
Yeah. And it was the craziest thing is it was a totally defensible move and decision for the front office to do that. Considering what their place in the standings was, and the way that they were going up to that point, made perfect sense to try and rebuild a little bit more for the future because they've got a nice, solid young core of players. I think the craziest thing to think about is remember all the talk about Tarek Skubal.
Yeah, he almost was going to move.
The best player available on the trade market at the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
And then, the part of the discussion after that was, the Tigers didn't trade Skubal. I don't know how that's going to work out for them.
Is the national media ready to talk about Riley Green? I mean, people will be thumbing through like their paperwork, right?
Exactly. I mean, Parker Meadows, who's Kerry Carpenter? You just look at the Tigers lineup and you really don't see any names of players that folks outside of Michigan and diehard baseball fans really know anything about. And that's what makes this story, I think, the best story going into the postseason is how the Tigers just came back from obscurity in the standings, and A.J. Hinch has done a fantastic job managing that roster. He has been, in my mind, there are plenty of good candidates for manager of the year, but he has done as good a job as anyone in Major League Baseball this year, going openers and somehow being able to get, wins where it didn't seem like there was any way to get wins and get the team back into playoff contention and make it just a fabulous job.
Steve, I'm gonna they may say hold my Gatorade, but the Milwaukee Brewers have been incredible. But I watch them a ton just because of the MLB channel, and they're in the National League, which is the greatest side of baseball going. Sorry, Ravi. I love the way they play, and for folks that haven't seen, right, they hit and run, they double steal. They're aggressive, and they do things. They do things that a lot of other teams in baseball don't do. How difficult are they of a scout, do you think, in the postseason in a short series?
I think they are difficult, and I think you're exactly right on the way that they do the little things, and all of speaking of great stories too, from a season-long perspective, what Milwaukee has done, they do not. Brandon Woodruff is injured and misses the entire season. They trade away their ace in Corbin Burns. They lose, manager of the year Craig Counsell to a division rival, and yet
Devin Williams was hurt for 60 games.
Right, exactly. Their best pitcher not available for half the season, but yet you're right. They do play sound fundamental baseball. They may be the best defensive team in the postseason right now. So, taking away opponents' hits and turning them into outs, that's what's going to make Milwaukee dangerous in the postseason. I don't know, beyond Freddie Peralta, how that starting pitching staff,
It's incredible.
and the bullpen has been pretty good with Williams back. But yeah, this is a team. It's definitely hard to scout because you don't necessarily know what Jackson Churio's strengths and weaknesses are because he's only been in the majors for 1 year and he's only 20 years old. So it's a fun team to watch. I'll be really excited to see how Milwaukee does.
Steve, real quick, about a minute left. I wanted to get your kind of takes on how these playoffs are going to play out from each league. Who would be your most and least surprising to make it out of their respective leagues?
Least surprising, I think, when you talk about the top seeds, I think the Yankees to make it, although I think the Orioles have a very good shot at the Yankees now that they're healthy.
I think the Yankees could lose in round one to me. They could either be in the World Series or be out golfing in 12 days.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Dodgers are probably the team that has the most to lose because I don't think they're the best team in the National League, even though they have the number one seed.
I agree.
I feel like they're the third best team in the National League.
I agree.
So Padres and Phillies will battle it out for me in the NLCS.
Steve, appreciate the time as always. Good stuff, and enjoy some October baseball.
Oh, you know it. Best time of year.
Always good. Thanks, Steve.
That's Steve Gardner from USA Today covering baseball. Good stuff with him as always.
Damn those Padres.
We'll be back with more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next. Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. And we're brought to you by our friends at Ep Foundation Repair. Make sure you get to epconcrete.com for all of your foundation needs. Basement waterproofing, crawl space encapsulation, foundation repair, whatever it is, they've got you covered with over 25 years of experience and local expertise. They are based in Lincoln, Nebraska, and are deeply familiar with local conditions and building practices. Get to epconcrete.com to learn more.
A couple good comments. My man John, he wants to know what happened with the old sweep play.
Like sweep the leg, like Karate Kid?
No, like pitch.
Oh, yeah.
Nebraska ran it a couple times. Dell had a couple.
I heard a couple people mention this on Saturday, too.
And Ramir had one that's the one where he jumped in the air.
Yeah.
But the thing with pitch now, it's hard. You almost have to run it like zone because if I'm the back, defenses run so well, you're not just going to sprint to the corner.
Yeah.
So you have to set guys up and use your blockers. We saw Henry have a nice one on toss last night to his left. See how patient he was? It's not about just sprinting to the corner and trying to outrun guys.
You kind of have to wait for the hole.
It's letting pullers and kickers get out there, and then you kind of can cut back.
Speaking of patience, real quick before you get to the next one, I loved on that screen pass on 2nd and 29 how EJ just gets behind Latovsky and kind of just puts his hand on his back.
Oh, how patient was
that? That was incredible.
It was so silly.
How hard is it as a running back not to just blow by that guy?
And, it's funny, full disclosure.
Yeah.
If you've heard, people that have heard me for years know that there's a couple things I hate from running backs. Number one is feeling for linemen.
Yeah. Put the hand out in front.
Yeah. I can't stand it. But I know why he did it.
Yeah.
Because he actually was like,
I think he was like guiding him, wasn't he?
I could outrun this guy, but I'm going to steer him.
Yeah.
And he was already in the open field.
Yes.
I really hate when it happens at the line of scrimmage. I was totally cool there.
Yeah.
But stretch is hard. But this is a good one from Husker X's and O's. I was a little hard on him earlier because people want me to like Smith at Ohio State. And
I mean, and he made a nice catch.
It wasn't even in like the top 12 of the weekend.
I don't know. It wouldn't even crack Ryan Williams' top 2.
It wasn't even in the top 12 of the weekend.
Dude, Williams is stupid.
Oh, God, he's silly.
From Bama? Oh, my God.
These receivers now, I mean, you have to do something.
It's unreal.
And they want him to be good.
Yeah.
Like at all costs. And I'm like, okay.
Who, Williams or Smith?
Smith.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Now, that's not to say I don't want the Steelers to draft an Ohio State wide receiver next year, but it'll be
Igbuka.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Igbuka.
Yeah.
As my man Gus Williams would say. But he said something. I'm kind of vibing here. He said, also, the comment Ravi had where he said people felt like they had seen this before and it hasn't gone our way. It's actually why I feel really good about this game. How often have we seen this team tuck tail, as you would
Richard?
What's his name?
Richard Tucker, good friend of mine. Good dude. Great guy.
Turns out.
Call him Ricky sometimes.
Yeah. How often have we seen this team tuck tail and play like Fedoni's OPI or the field goal debacle? The fact that they nutted up, which is a term that I love, and kept up with what they do and yielded results the way it did, eventually is why he feels good, right? Like,
what did Coach Rule say after the game? They needed this. They needed one like this, right? This game was 7-3 going into the fourth quarter. This game was in doubt in the fourth quarter. And Nebraska, despite the fact, like I said, had kicked Purdue's ass all day. Was only up by 4 points going into the fourth quarter.
Were you getting violent? I don't know why you subscribe to putting yourself through things real time before the game isn't over.
Because I'm trying to have conversations with people.
It's hard, man.
And
you got to have the right temperament.
You tell me this all the time, right?
Okay.
You're like, hey, you can't just resign to the fact that people are going to be bad. You got to try and help them make them better.
I agree with that. I agree.
But
you have to be built that way.
I'm not, but I'm trying.
You have to be built to
I'm built to stand on violence.
You gotta, because sometimes.
But I'm trying to make people
sometimes,
better.
like over time, like those people turn out to be good for you. Like Dennis.
Yeah.
I'm not. He's on punishment right now, but well, he's just firing off during the game, man.
So I'm trying to help. That's why I do it. Is A, I like the conversation, and B, I'm trying to help people see, because people do get emotional.
Well, and I'm going out in public,
and so do I.
And people are like, dude, you need better friends. And I'm like, well, only a few of them are like actually my friends, but I do talk to a lot of people on social media.
Yeah, you talk to a lot of people.
Because I do want everybody to be better.
But I need people.
And sometimes I get, like, I learn a lot from Lance.
But sometimes it's to your detriment.
It hasn't been that bad yet.
No.
Although,
but like for you mentally, sometimes when you're exposed to a lot of stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Oh yeah, last September.
Yeah, like there's a lot of that's the downside of it, right? So I try and be there to. Educate's the wrong word because that makes it seem like I'm smarter than everyone, and I don't always think that. But I do think I have a different perspective than other people sometimes, and that I can sometimes see things a little more reasoned and say, hey, I know this is what it looks like, but let's kind of dial down into this and see what it really is. And so that's what I was trying to do at halftime. And honestly, I was surprised by how toxic it was at halftime. People were in full meltdown mode. Like it was.
Bless your heart.
It was full on like panic button, Chernobyl meltdown. Like that's where people were at halftime. And I was like, guys, I get that.
Did you see how I jinxed Coach Rule? Shame on you for listening to the Peacock broadcast, which, by the way, so two things, how the sausage is made. So I come up with Jack Collinsworth. And he kind of looks more like a beat writer than somebody that's doing the broadcast because he had on just a regular T-shirt.
Yeah.
Some slacks and some chucks or something like that. But his blazer was kind of hanging over his bag and he had his board with him. So I didn't think anything of it. He sounds just like his dad. It's like, hey, what's up? Enjoy the broadcast, whatever. So I went on about my business. Came back about 8 minutes later to see if, because they had ginger ale in the cooler.
Yeah.
So shout out to West Lafayette. Not only for being good to Sharpie, but they had ginger ale, Seagram's. And I was like, fudge, man, it's pop. I'm not having pop. It's pop.
It's not pop, it's ginger ale. You're cool.
And they had this other hibiscus, and they had, like, it was a nice little assortment.
Yeah.
So I looked at Sipple, and I was like, yeah, since you don't ever want to take me out and have this ginger ale, I'm going to have this ginger ale on you. So I was just I was messing with Sip. And I look back, and he's still at the checkpoint. So I get ready to go downstairs, and I got to do my hit with Jessica. And he's like, well, something mighty. And the lady was tough. I mean, she was like the Gestapo. Like, she was not playing. She was like, I almost did her voice. You can't because it's cultural difference.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. Just move right along there.
Yeah. Wow. Whew, thank the Lord.
Don't need the play-by-play on that one.
Nope. So finally he gets in, and he's just like just cussing under his breath. But he looks like he's 10, so it's hard to take his anger seriously. Even though he's clearly there to do a job.
Yeah.
It's just that they were very, very
diligent,
strict.
Yeah.
And so I did my hit, and I came back. I was coming back up, and lo and behold, who was getting on the elevator? Mr. Robinson. His shoe game, was incredible.
What was he rocking?
So they were like, do you remember old school Capas?
Capas.
So really, it's a Louis Vuitton spinoff.
Oh, okay.
Not a spinoff. I mean, Louis Vuitton is Louis Vuitton.
Yeah.
The design reminded me of like old school cape. The brothers used to wear them back in the day anyway.
Okay.
Longevity didn't last. Short story long. And they were shiny. They had like the patent leather middle, but they were tennis shoes. And so I recognized him right away, but there were other people on the elevator, so I wasn't trying to blow him up because he had his sunglasses on. His hair was pulled back. And I was like, hey, man. I'm like, I'm doing radio. You're doing TV. Can I get that shoe game budget? My man was like, cut it out, bro. Cut it out. And then the people were wheeling the food off to the suites on the floor, and the lady goes, I like your shoes. Those sure are shiny. Dude, I was in tears.
Those are shiny.
Tears. But anyway, I say all that to say, like, watching at halftime, especially our writers, like Brunson and I are just like, so Brunson's the same all the time.
Very even keel dude.
And funny.
Yeah.
And he's not even trying.
He's super dry.
So we're just coming. We got like some one-liners.
Yeah.
I mean, BC looks like he's stressed. He's got his hands in his pockets. He's going back and forth. And we're just looking around at each other like, have you ever seen anything like that? How do you, like, what's the narrative on this first half? Like, how do you surmise this first half? And Bruns looks over his shoulder. He's walking away to go back to media run. He is special teams, maybe. And that's all he said. It totally broke the tension.
Yeah.
Right. Because it was
special teams was rough.
It was dicey up there.
So
it was way dicey up there.
I would have felt way different if those drives were ending with turnovers instead of with punts and missed field
That's a good way to look at it. Were you doing that real time, or are you just being cool now that it's a couple days?
Real time, I was super calm about the situation.
Okay.
Like, you can ask people that were talking.
I pushed away from the thing. I looked at B Mac. I said, "Man, Lord help me," because he's always the funny guy.
Yeah.
He didn't have a lot of jokes.
You can ask people I talked to, and you know some of them. People I was talking to at halftime. Like, I was the voice of reason. Like, guys, this is fine, right? Not that it was perfect, but that it was fine, right?
Okay.
I don't know that I put it in this context at the time, that if it had been turnovers instead of how drives were ending, I would have felt different. Because I think that's the big difference between what we saw in the last decade of Nebraska football versus what we saw on Saturday. Is like, do the special teams need addressed? 100%. And I don't know how you fix that real time in the season without a kicker just getting his head right, or Alvano getting healthy, or whatever, right? Or a snapper getting his head.
He is really
like, it's a tough situation.
It's hard. It's hard to not be able to help your teammates.
It's a tough situation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that. It's fine.
And snapper, same thing. Like, I don't know if it's just gonna click one day for the snappers, or if that's something we're just gonna have to deal with all year. But like Coach Rule said, they were better on the extra points. I don't know if there's psychologically something different, because some of those field goals weren't a lot different than extra points, right?
Well, they got to look at the snap in the hole. 2 of those snaps rolled.
Right. No, that's what I mean, though. Like, but the snaps.
Shoot, Buschini might have been player of the game. He had tackle of the game.
Dude,
he got a couple of those.
Dude,
he formed him up, grabbed skin, drove his butt to the ground.
I thought he was trying out for professional wrestling, man. He was like,
and his first punch should have been killed inside the 10.
Yeah, I don't know.
He was okay.
I thought Buschini was good on Saturday. Yeah. He had the one that should have been killed at the 1, but
the first one, right?
Yeah. And then he had 2 more that were killed inside the 12. Like, I thought he did pretty well. But if those drives are ending in turnovers instead of missed field goals and punts, I could understand the panic. I really could.
Was Was there any precept? I mean, I didn't hear it when you guys were talking about it on the
Shame
radio.
on you.
Was there any precept in the air at all?
Precip?
Yeah.
Yes.
So could the ball have
No.
been?
No, it
Not at
wasn't
all?
enough. No. And
Not
as a
enough
matter of fact, it got hot.
Yeah.
They
It
got
did look super weird on the broadcast because it would be like really overcast and then super bright
Yeah.
and then really overcast.
I'm telling you, all those people that were drinking Busch Lights and High Noons,
and struggling.
drunk. Drunk.
Let's get to
Did you see? So my friend Joel, the mayor. Did you see his tweet? He said we're still going to win by 3 touchdowns. This was real time. He said so. Not everybody was panicking.
No, I'm not saying everybody was, but the people I talked were
That
talking.
is so Joel, like even keel.
Yeah. People I were talking to were full on like 3 Mile Island meltdown. Let's get to Cody. He was at the Purdue game.
Commander Cody, what's up?
Is this wrestler Cody?
Yeah.
All right, what's up, Cody?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I was kind of calling for. I don't know what was a louder moment in the stadium between Buschini's awesome double leg tackle or who might be the number one player on Twitter right now, and Alex Bullock with that block he had on the edge, taking out 2 guys.
That was a great block on the Barney run, the Barney touchdown.
He plays hard. He plays really hard.
I was also very pleasantly surprised. Purdue fans are awesome.
They were cool, man. Like it was unbelievable. We took an Uber over, so it was me, Jess, and one of our guys that helps out, who is going to be my new favorite. But anyway, so we're driving over there with one of the basketball guys to do videography, and it's like I don't know. It's early. It's 6:10 here. And the guys are out at the frat house, and they're clearly getting ready to get it in. And it's early, like the sun's barely up. And she rolls down the window, and they had this sign, and it had the wrong Herbie. And she rolls down the window, and she's like, "You've got the wrong Herbie," because she's never met a stranger. Like she's just cool, and they look at her like, "All right." I mean, just like well on their way already, but super cool. Then we get to the booth. They're cool. Like it was a good. I think they were drunk, but they were good.
They were definitely drunk. I think the funniest part, we pulled into town shortly after what you were talking about. It was about 7:30 because we stayed over in Danville, Illinois. We were going to pay $700 for a hotel.
Yeah, getting gouged.
So we pull in about 7:30. The first thing we see in West Lafayette, 6 dudes in army helmets walking that big ass drum up the street to the stadium.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. I've never seen a college more enthused about their band than Purdue University.
Was that train driving you crazy? Because like you at some point you just had to tell yourself you gotta zero it out, man.
It was, but it was also hilarious because you're in a college town at 8 a.m. and this train is just driving around town. We've seen it like 7 different times before it pulled out into the stadium, just wailing that horn. It led the Purdue buses up Stadium Drive. And I mean, those fans go crazy for that. I kind of wanted to take a ride on it. It was, I don't know what it was.
So with the alcohol sales coming to Memorial Stadium next year, allegedly, pending the vote from the BOR, how many high noons will Nebraskans just be hammering?
I don't think it'll be as bad because I also am still very confused watching the game.
Why people would drink high noons? I have no idea either.
Yeah, finish that too. No, watching the game yesterday, on the broadcast, it sounded like that stadium was so loud.
Yep.
But being in the stadium, I never thought it was loud once.
That's a good point. Like, so when the fans got going, it was pretty good, but it wasn't like loud.
No, I mean,
you see how fast
the only time it ever got going is when they're laying that train horn on 3rd down.
You see how fast it got empty when after they made it 21-3.
Yeah.
It's like
I took a video. It was 14-3 in the whole stadium.
It was like they all sent each other the memo.
Well, I think they just knew. They're like, the dam broke. Time to go get our homecoming on.
I will say that. What would you say that was, about 70-30, 60-40 with Nebraska fans? There was a lot of them.
I would say 50-50. But the first the first people in the stadium were all in red.
Yeah.
So like the first 20,000, I was like, wow. Is there any Purdue fans
here?
But
No,
then once the
funny
student
story
section got
about-
there, they held their own.
The funny story about the alcohol sales is their machines, because they're a cashless stadium, all their machines were broken in the morning.
No.
They couldn't connect to the Wi-Fi.
Did they go all Ireland and just give it away for free?
Yeah, they did. I know I got a couple for free. A couple people around me because they were just like, "Get out of here. We're sorry for making you wait."
I got some. I appreciate the call, Cody. I got some insight from my man AK. He's like, I sell high noon. Nebraska will do a deal, blah blah blah, with our competition likely for neutral. I guess there will be some concession because it's Bud Light who makes neutral, and they will not want the competition, even though high noon sells like 3-1. I get it. So it's the people that
it's the distributor. Yeah,
that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Dang, thanks.
I prefer neutral to high noon personally, but actually the tequila high noons are actually really good. I prefer the tequila high noons over any of them. And then they have some that are like teas. They have like a peach tea high noon.
Just stop.
Woo!
Knock it off.
Boy, oh boy, that's tasty.
Knock it off.
It's delicious.
Bro, really?
Incredible.
You want to break it down for
Oh
me?
yeah.
High noons and neutrals, huh?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's a lot of them. I'm not a big like White Claw guy. Those are gross. High noons are good though. I like high noons.
Exactly. You know what neutrals are good for?
What's that?
When you're thirsty and you just want to get it out of the way.
I enjoy a good neutral, It's refreshing, tasty.
You touched it.
It's good.
Dang, that's what AK does. I'm in the wrong line of work. I need to be a distributor.
Our guy John chimes in on Johnny Pig.
Oh, JL
on Twitter says Rule was right about this game showing team growth. This was the type of game Nebraska found a way to lose for years. Instead, they found a way to push through, fight off the chaos, and win. Ugly game or not, this team is growing.
Don't tell that to Lincoln Lance.
Ooh, can't grow and be good at the same time.
Oh, no, although he did respond. He said I think we're just average. So maybe that's his thing.
That's fine. He doesn't think they're good. That's fine. But the question still stands. You can be good and growing at the same time.
So did you can we move on from the officiating thing if it's universally bad, or do you think it's going to be an issue?
So I think it's going to be an issue because I do think
because I don't want Nebraska fans to think it's just them, because it's not. It's not. It's clearly not.
It's not just them. There are some that have been egregious that have gone against them, that have been and that have directly taken points off the board, right? So that's I think where it's a little different. And I do think that Matt Rule I think what he said is important, and I think he was talking maybe in larger terms too, but specifically about the officiating. Somebody's got to fight for Nebraska. Somebody's got to be an advocate for Nebraska.
I jinxed him though, because this is what I was going to say. I said on the broadcast, like, surprisingly with what's going on, this is about as even keeled as I'd seen him. And then
then goes the headset.
And then Mount Vesuvius erupted. But there were some fans that kind of thought the team was taking on his persona in previous weeks. And I'm like, I'm telling you, these guys got his back.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We saw it after Colorado with Ty Robinson, saying, hey, this is why I came back. Everybody caught that on video or whatever. And what?
John.
What'd he say?
Don't tease Ravi too much. The seltzers come in the same box as that man bun.
Seltzers are delicious, man.
I told you he's tough.
Which John is that?
Yes, that's our guy.
Is that Johnny Pig?
Yeah, he's pretty. He's pretty snarky. That's the cook, the bacon guy.
I know. Yeah. I've met him.
Yeah.
We went to Paisans once.
Don't blink. He'll get you.
I don't care.
The easiest solution. This is from Greg. The easiest solution is to just make these calls reviewable. Anyone that watched this call or picked the call against Fedoni are instantly reversed. Yeah, you are going to slow. I mean,
here's the problem, though. Part of what we're mad about with the officiating is how disjointed the game feels, right? Now, if you're just saying, hey, it's going to be.
I said, Ravi, it's like, no, neither fan base was happy.
No, and they shouldn't have been. It was a really hard game to watch, especially in the first half. But unless you're just resigning to saying, hey, it's going to be disjointed anyway, we might as well get it right while it's being disjointed, then okay. But if you're trying to make the game smoother, more reviews aren't going to help that. So it depends on what your goal is.
Yeah.
If you're just resigned, like, hey, this is going to be choppy, let's get it right. Okay, I can live with that. I do think, I said this in real time, I do think Rule had him review that just so they had to see how bad they missed it.
Yeah.
I
could totally see. And he thinks like that.
He had no qualms. Like, he knew that the guy was beyond the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, he's burning that.
He's just like, hey, watch it. Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. It's time for Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. Warhorse Sportsbook, the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets. Tonight, got big drawings at the Sportsbook in Lincoln. It's today, September 30th, 8, 9, and 10 p.m. Chance to win free slot play and 2 tickets to a suite in Vegas for the Chiefs versus Raiders game and a 3-night stay at Palms Resort or $5,000 cash. Must be present to win. Go to warhorsecasino.com to learn more about this giveaway. But what you need to know, need to be at the Lincoln Sportsbook tonight. DB.
Yes, sir.
So I have a question. I have a question for you.
Why do you love your man bun and seltzers? I have no idea.
Well, listen, I just am who I am, and I'm comfortable in my own skin.
I am who I am.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
So if a team
yes,
commits more penalties, is that because the refs have it out for them, or maybe did they commit more penalties?
Potentially they could have committed more penalties.
So, like, if you're talking to 2 different people, right? So let's say you're talking to me, who is usually pretty straightforward with you, tells you the truth a lot of the time, as much as I can.
Yeah.
And you're talking to, I don't know, somebody that lies to you all the time. I don't know who's in your life that lies to you all the time. Maybe Denny. We'll just use some examples in season timeout.
Not an official timeout, just timeout.
We'll just use Denny as an example, right? I'm not saying he's a liar, but for this example.
I thought he was Dennis. Are we going with Denny?
No, we went Denny because the Dennises got mad.
Okay.
The Dennises revolted.
Okay.
They were like, hey, don't put us with that guy.
Yeah.
So let's say Denny's lying to you a bunch, and we're both talking at the same time. You, me, and Denny are all hanging out on the stage talking, and I'm telling you the truth, and Denny's lying to you a bunch, and you correct Denny every time he lies to you. And then Denny gets mad. He goes, hey, how come you're not correcting him every time he says anything? It's like, because you're lying and he's not.
Where are you going with this?
So when Purdue gets called for twice as many penalty yards as Nebraska, is it maybe because they're tackling a receiver every time they go deep? You think that could be it? Or do you think it's because the refs were kind to Nebraska?
Could be part of it.
Huh, weird.
Did you think the personal foul where he threw your boy's legs in the air, was that egregious?
It was a personal foul.
Yeah.
He flipped the legs in the air, and then he stood over him. Like, anytime you do one of these, you're getting flagged. I'm sorry. Like, I don't care what happened before. I don't care what happens after. If you do anything to a player on a football field and do one of these, expect a flag.
Did you see this? It was like the 3rd or the 4th PI that they called on Banks. Nair was actually grabbed first.
Yeah, they double PI'd on the same play.
I was like, wow, that's hard to do.
It is hard to do, but they clearly had a game plan. And to be fair, Walters did this at Illinois.
Yeah. Yeah,
they assaulted people at Illinois.
That's how Illinois still plays.
Yes, but in that secondary, that really good secondary 2 years ago that had 3 guys drafted in the top few rounds.
Yeah, you got one of them balling. You got Spoon still balling in
they just
Seattle.
Assaulted people and are like, hey, you're not going to call it every time. And on Saturday, the refs are like, yeah, we actually are going to call it every time because they were tackling people. The difference is Illinois' secondary was good enough to make it look like they were making plays on the ball while they were assaulting you.
Mm-hmm.
Purdue secondary is not there right now, right? So when it's a lot more egregious when you're not even attempting a play on the ball. Like Witherspoon was going to try and go get a ball.
So
after he assaulted you.
Well, it wasn't me.
Not you personally, the royal you.
It just was the first time in a long time I needed a pep talk to. And thank gosh, I mean, DJ was listening because, I mean, Notre Dame was getting ready to lay waste to, well, they actually didn't lay waste, but
they were, I mean,
handle a little, I mean, they were in control.
For most, yeah.
I'm not going to lie, though, man.
I got a little nervous at the end.
That green, it hits.
The Notre Dame green?
Yeah,
big, always does.
Big, I liked a lot of uniforms this week.
Notre Dame's uniforms are iconic.
How sweet
Like,
were
they're
the
great.
Falcons?
Yeah, Falcons are pretty good.
Oh, those were nice with the red helmets.
Yeah, I do like the old school red helmet, like for the Falcons, because that's what they were in like the '80s, right? The red one.
Yeah,
it's a good look.
Yeah, Steve Barkowski and Billy White Shoes Johnson.
What is it? William Andrews?
Yeah, good. Yeah, sure.
Running back.
Yeah,
I was thinking more like Morton Anderson.
Him too, but he had the double bar, so it was like
the red still looked good. The double bar didn't look good, but the red still looked good.
It's flipping pretty awful.
Speaking of the NFL, a lot going on this weekend.
Yeah,
there was a lot going on this weekend.
Apparently, it's back to being hard to win. It's just hard to win.
It's apparently I mean, I know we've talked about this a little bit, and I know you hate it when I talk about quarterbacks all the time.
I don't hate it. It's a thing. It's the league.
But the resurrection of the quarterbacks this year has been unbelievable.
So, full disclosure before you say this.
Yeah.
I didn't have I'm going to tell you the difference between me and some of my idiotic friends that send me things about my teams while I'm cheering, and they're like, "Oh, hey, good job." Like they'll rub it in.
Yeah.
I knew that Severe hates the Falcons. Like, Norland, he hates the ATL.
Yeah.
So I wasn't going to text about the game. I just was going to say, hey, deep down, do you know how bad I'm cheering for Sam Darnold to win MVP? But I was afraid. Shane's laughing because he and I would go back and forth
on Darnold.
Oh yeah. Like, and I'm a huge Sam Darnold guy.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the heart because they were in a nail biter to think that he would
like be in the headspace for it,
like laugh.
Yeah.
Because it's a long shot.
Yeah.
But
for sure.
But I was like,
start.
but he would get it though, because he knows how much we've gone.
Oh yeah, it's like if somebody brings up Trevor Lawrence to me, like I know.
Yeah, and he's got a great memory, so we kind of keep mental tally on who was right and who was wrong, and it's just petty brotherly stuff. But my man is just like we talked in the offseason. I'll give him every opportunity to flourish because he has all the talents in the world, and he's got an elite level offensive mind.
And he has looked like we've never seen Sam Darnold look in the NFL before.
I was actually shocked to see Green Bay weather that storm. I thought they were going to get their doors blown off.
Yeah.
I thought they were going to pull Philadelphia Eagles.
They about did. Speaking of guys that have resurrected.
I got to be honest, though.
Yeah.
Would you like to take the bet back, since this is bet on a segment?
Which one?
When I asked you about Dable and Sirianni. Although Sirianni's going to get fired.
Yeah, for sure. Sirianni's definitely going to get fired. I think I'm still taking Dable there. Like I don't know. Sirianni's got a weird, like, I don't trust his eyes. Does that make sense?
Watched them yesterday?
Yeah, they were terrible.
I mean, what the world?
You know what it is about Sirianni?
And you want to know how you can't look at, again, since this is a bet on it segment.
Yeah.
Do you know why you can't just look at stinky lines?
Why's that?
Philly was favored. Listen, no Lane Johnson.
Yeah.
No Devontae Smith.
Yeah.
No A.J. Brown. You're in Tampa. You have the worst record.
And Baker's playing well. Tampa's playing well.
Hey, he is
another resurrection candidate.
I didn't like the shot Brady took at him though during the broadcast, but I know why he said.
Well, I don't think I caught that.
So Baker was on a podcast earlier in the week. And he basically talked about the change in the culture.
Oh, I heard. Yeah. He's just trying to bring joy back to.
He said he's just bringing joy back to the locker room. He said, Tom clearly brought Super Bowl standards and intensity, but he stressed guys out.
Yeah.
Man, TB went in during the broadcast.
Yeah, I heard that.
I was like, huh.
Like, I thought not having rings was stressful.
Which was a great line.
It is a good line. Here's the thing, though. They both can be right.
Oh, yeah. I just didn't think Brady would use that platform. And his partner, hey, it seems like you have more to say. Do you want to go back to that?
Listen, he's trying to get.
And then Tom Brady intentionally dropped his voice because people are mad that his voice isn't deep enough.
Yeah.
I don't like Brady because I feel like his voice isn't registered. I haven't listened to him a ton yet to even have an opinion.
His voice doesn't bother me,
but I was surprised that he whacked him during the broadcast. And then Baker goes back and gets it in the presser.
I mean, they're both right.
Yeah.
Like really, really great players do stress out their teammates.
Yeah.
Almost nobody liked playing with Michael Jordan. Guess what? They won a whole hell of a lot.
I don't know. Does Steph seem likable?
Steph's a different dude. He really is. Like, Steph is probably one of the strangest.
I don't think I would
we've
enjoy
ever had.
playing with LeBron.
No. But, like, have you heard stories about the 94, 95, or 93, 94 Bulls, the year that, that Jordan's gone?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, it was such a great time to be around. But guess what? They weren't very good the next year. You know why? Because nobody was holding them accountable. Like, sometimes you got to have somebody hold your feet to the fire.
Yeah.
That's what great players do. Not a ton of fun to be around, though. How many times have you said it? You go, Coach Rule might be a hard guy to work for.
Yeah, I love him, but I'm not sure I want to hang out.
I mean, I do want to hang out. I'm not sure I want to work for him.
Yeah.
There's a difference, right? I want to hang out with Jordan. I'm not sure I want to be his
I
teammate.
don't know if I like being held accountable all the time.
That's Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. We're brought to you by our friends at Team Jack Foundation. Their Radiothon, their 12th annual, was last week, but there's still plenty of time to donate and get them to their goal for this year. They're about 60% of the way there. Make sure you get to teamjackfoundation.org to donate and get them closer to their goal. You can also check out future events that are coming up and see what projects they're working on. That's teamjackfoundation.org. What's up, DB?
The Rev is at it again. Another one of those guys I like that's an equal opportunity offender. Like, he'll say the same thing about me as he will somebody else. He says, the pettiest receipt-keeping Richard in the NFL, who happens to be the GOAT, but still created a whole brand around his feelings of being slighted, would use his new platform to go on his replacement, calling him a Richard? Color me shocked. That is so Rev.
And it's right on point. I mean, dude, that's how, I
was a little surprised he went there.
I wasn't.
Dude, and he laid out for it.
I think we're a little surprised that
he's got problems
because Brady comes off so polished and everything. I think sometimes we're a little surprised that that's in him, where with Jordan, we kind of always knew it was.
Yeah.
But like a lot of those guys are wired that way.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be
100%.
like to get up when you're 45 and you're like, hey, I'd rather go work out than hang out with my supermodel wife to the point where she's going to leave me if I go work out again. And you're like, yep, that seems like a good plan. You have to stay pretty damn petty for that to make sense.
You got to get that workout in.
Like you got to stay pretty petty.
My man, Gentle Ben, we were talking about in that whole officiating thread that has taken off. Mitch lit this whole thing up. God darn you, Mitch Sherman. Poor Chris. Chris is getting crushed. What is it? Chris Nelson? Chris is.
I don't know about poor Chris.
Chris is getting it. He said you can hear DB say, "Don't call that." I watched that. Ravi, gentleman, he is dead on because I saw the whole thing happening, and my man put his hands up like I didn't do it, like.
But he didn't do it after he pushed. He put his hands up
before
to show he wasn't pushing.
Before he put his hands up. I watched the whole thing.
Because usually people see the push and then they put their hands up.
Yeah.
But this was, I'm putting my hands up so you know I did not push him.
Because I'm watching him come out of the backfield. I was like, ooh, if he makes this block, he can turn the corner. So I'm watching Banks the whole way. Mm-hmm. I'm not even watching the ball. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, he let up. He pulled up.
Yep.
He just kind of guided with his hip. There's nothing there.
Yeah.
I was like, don't call that. Don't call that. He waited and threw the flag. I was like, wow, here we go.
It's like when
I'm like, you can't do that.
You ever seen, I'm sure you have, like when Nikola Jokic is running down the court and let's say Jamal Murray's got the ball and Jokic is the last one down because he's a little slow, right? And he walks down the lane like this and he's just walking his guy down the lane. That's not a moving screen. Yeah. He's just walking down the lane. That's what Jamal Banks was doing. Right.
I just, and I also hate, I don't love the ones, and this is tough on officials, but when a DB goes to, or when a wide receiver goes to stalk a guy,
mm-hmm.
and a DB goes, he goes limp shoulder, and he gets back vertical, and he automatically puts the receiver on his hip.
Mm-hmm.
That guy's still gaining ground. The DB can move, or the wide receiver can move with the DB and still not have it be a block in the back.
Yeah.
It looks a little precarious,
mm-hmm.
but he's not moving him there. The DB is already going that way. I cannot stand that call.
So Amazing Daniel asked a decent question earlier in the stream.
There's no way. Although he did say Bobby Flay's burger joint was mid, which everybody says.
That's because Bobby Flay's mid, but
I don't know.
Not a Bobby Flay guy.
No, I don't. Yeah, I mean, I get it.
All I know is I find him a little annoying. All I know is every chef I've ever spoken to hates Bobby Flay.
Yeah, well.
So that's what I'm basing this off of. But no, he asked a good question in the stream earlier. He goes, it was about the Fedoni play, but I think it applies here too, or at least my answer to him does. He goes, I can see how you miss calls where you don't see something that happened. He's like, how do you make a call where something clearly didn't happen?
That's the thing.
And I go, so a lot of guys that aren't very good at their job, talking about officials specifically here, they'll use kind of cheaters. They'll use shortcuts to say, if it looks like this, then this probably happened, rather than looking for the thing that actually happened, right? So if a guy, if a tight end's going in and then a guy stumbles, he assumes the tight end hit him, and that's a OPI, right? Rather than watching the tight end not hit him, he's looking at the result and being like, oh, it must have happened in order for this to happen. I feel like the Banks thing was very similar, or what you're talking about with DBs going limp, right?
Unfortunately, I'm going to agree with Amazing Daniel here, because I do think officials have a really hard job because it's so gosh darn bang bang, and guys are big and strong,
and everything's happened so fast.
It's fast,
yeah.
And which is why I think you've seen so many more fit officials.
Yeah.
Not only has it gotten younger because guys are aging out, but like
you have to be in good shape to stay up.
You do have to be in good shape.
Yeah.
But I am in complete agreement over, if you didn't see it, don't call it.
Right.
Like, that part's easy.
I understand that, but I'm saying, but that's how it happens. Is guys take shortcuts because it is happening so fast. They feel like they have to take shortcuts to get it right. I'm not saying they should, but you see it in basketball all the time too.
So how do you explain Minnesota and Michigan?
Which one?
Dude, the onside.
Oh, yeah. I don't know on that one. I don't have a good answer for that one.
Oh.
I don't have a good answer for that one, because usually it's contact plays that I'm talking about, right?
Okay, do yourself a favor.
Yeah.
And this isn't because this is again, I think Chris is getting it on social media because he responded to Mitch as though Mitch was saying it's just a Nebraska thing,
which he
wasn't. But go back and listen to Bielema in Franklin.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all in onslaught.
Yeah.
Dudes are just willing to cough up their. I mean, they make good money, so.
And the fines aren't that punitive comparatively to what they make.
I mean, I was like, wow. And I feel like sometimes I want Coach Rule to go there, but I think the media, we would just treat him differently.
Yeah.
I feel like he would somehow be labeled as a guy that was complaining.
So you can only do it.
That's why I asked Sam, I'm like, how much grace are you willing to give somebody that clearly has a bone to pick? And he's right.
He can only do it in wins. That's the key. Because if you do it in a loss, you're a sore loser.
Is this a Raviism?
I think so.
Okay, walk me through it.
So if you do it in a loss, if you complain about officiating in a loss, you're a sore loser. You're like, oh, don't complain about the officiating. Control what you can control, right, Coach? You tell us all that time. Correct what you can correct. You tell us all the time. Don't put it on the officials.
Okay.
But if you do it in a win, you're like, hey, we're trying to be better. We're trying to grow. I need the officials to be better too. You're not complaining, then you're pointing something out. It's a huge difference the way people react to it. You can't, if you're a rule, if you're other guys, you can get away with it. But if you're a rule, and with the way our fan base reacts to stuff, you can't do it in a loss. You can only do it in a win.
It's
you heard him go back and get it a little bit from last week, though, didn't you? We had a tough go of it last week.
Yeah. So, and I know I watched in like the pregame. I wonder what those officials are saying to him, because I know, and I'm trying not to be nosy, but they are referencing last week's game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just want to know what the officials are saying. Like, are they like, hey, man, my bad, like. Because the head of officials, and I mean, leave it to our fan base, like they've got the whole 411 on his history.
Oh yeah, people will deep dive,
right? And it's like, well, they ran him out of the NFL. It's like, I'm like, I don't want to vilify the guy. I'm just saying, like,
he may not be very good at a job though. Like he just might not be. For what it's worth, a $10,000 fine on a $9 million salary would be equivalent to like a normal person paying like $80. Is that worth saying what you want to say?
Yes.
See? Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like. If I was in a situation, I was like, hey, You can say whatever you
And
want.
he doesn't have a car, so he could just he ain't making the car payment.
Yeah.
So it's like,
hey, you can say whatever you want, Brett, but it's gonna cost you about $80. Okay, done.
so here's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
So right next to our booth was a lot of folks from the Coach Rule's family. And his daughters, are so stinking cute. They're like pounding on the glass. And
Yeah.
They're like making notes and stuff. I'm like, oh, I don't want to do my job. I did want to go over there, but I didn't. This is total self-control. Even during breaks, I didn't go in the booth.
Yeah, because you got distracted.
I was going to go in the suite, and I was like, nah. Number one, she had on this red leather coat that was off the chain.
Was it pretty sick?
Tied in the front. It was full length. I was like, ugh, like saucy. But the other thing is, when we're trying to discern what was going on when he got the penalty, she was livid. And I bet you, I don't have the stones to ask. Maybe after it subsided, I wonder if she was mad at him for acting like that.
Yeah.
Or the call. And I bet you it was him.
Oh, probably. If I don't know the dynamic super well, but I'm guessing.
Oh,
I'm guessing it was him.
You got to see that coat though.
I mean, I like a good coat. I do.
Yeah,
We're about to enter my coat season. I'm excited about it. Johnny Pitt can make fun of me for that too. I like a good coat. I like a good seltzer.
You're not gonna let him down. You're not gonna let him get over that, are you?
I don't know if you know this, but I don't have the man bun for people that look like Johnny Pitt. I have it for people that look like my wife.